If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description. Additionally, if you would like to request novels and access my Google Drive where I have 200 plus audiobooks, then you can join my Patreon. Link is also provided in the description.
Chapter 101, Can We Talk Now, Kurama? Boss, 2 bowls of ramen. Uchiha Akira called out as he entered the ramen shop. It wasn't his first time here, he'd been before, just to check it out. As he spoke, Akira's eyes narrowed slightly, and the 3 Tomo Sharingan appeared, staring intently at Toki, the owner of Ichiraku Ramen. Before his reincarnation, Akira had been a fan of the Naruto series. There was a popular fan theory that Toki, the ramen shop owner, was actually Otsutsuki Toki, a hidden mastermind behind the scenes. The most significant evidence for this theory was when Pain used his almighty push to destroy the entire village, but Ichiraku Ramen remained untouched. So, Akira couldn't help but activate his Sharingan to carefully observe Toki. But, well, it turned out to be just a rumor. Akira saw no sign of any chakra activity after scrutinizing Toki with his Sharingan. Moreover, considering the original series, there was no plot where Toki turned out to be a hidden villain. What's with the eyes? Toki asked, noticing Akira's sudden activation of his Sharingan and feeling a bit puzzled. Oh, nothing, Akira replied, shaking his head as he deactivated his Sharingan. By the way, do you think 2 bowls of ramen will be enough? Toki asked after a brief pause. Hey! Akira was momentarily stunned by the question. 2 large bowls of ramen for 2 7-year-olds, why wouldn't that be enough? Wait, could it be? Just then, Naruto's voice chimed in, confirming Akira's suspicions. Uncle, start with 10 bowls of miso ramen. If that's not enough, I'll let you know. Naruto said, with a tone that suggested it was the most natural thing in the world. That's more like it, Toki nodded to himself, secretly thinking that this matched Naruto's usual appetite. He then turned to start preparing the order. Akira, on the other hand, could only place a hand on his forehead in resignation. Right, he had almost forgotten that Naruto's appetite was legendary. He could stack ramen bowls to impressive heights. It was a typical trait found in many anime protagonists, a massive appetite, a straightforward nature, and a tendency to get into amusing situations. Characters like Naruto, Luffy, and Goku all fit this mold perfectly. But instead of dwelling on it, Akira focused on the here and now. Toki's ramen preparation was swift, and once the bowls were ready, Naruto began eating with gusto. Slurp, slurp. In no time, Naruto had already polished off 4 or 5 bowls. Meanwhile, Akira was still working on his first bowl. Glancing at Naruto's seemingly unchanged stomach, Akira couldn't help but silently wonder if Naruto's stomach was connected to another dimension. How could he not even show the slightest sign of being full after 5 large bowls of ramen? Akira, you're really strong, but one day, I'll surpass you. People say you'll become the 6th Hokage, but we'll be rivals in the future. Naruto declared after downing 2 more bowls, slowing down a bit as he started to feel slightly full. I'll be waiting, Akira nodded seriously, acknowledging Naruto's challenge. Naruto was still just a child who hadn't even graduated from the Ninja Academy, while Akira was already the head of the Anbu. For anyone else, Naruto's claim to compete for the Hokage title would seem utterly ridiculous. But Akira knew better. If there was anyone who could rival him for the Hokage position, it was definitely Naruto. As the reincarnation of Asura and the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, Naruto was destined to be a powerhouse in the Naruto world. Of course, with the addition of his life simulator, Akira was also quite formidable. By the way, tomorrow I'll be leading the village's top fighters to the border to demonstrate Konoha's strength. Want to come along? Akira asked, changing the subject after they had chatted for a while. Hey? You're inviting me to leave the village? Naruto put down his chopsticks and looked at Akira in surprise, clearly not expecting such an invitation. Yes, so what do you think? Are you up for it? Akira smiled slightly as he posed the question. What's there to be afraid of? I've been wanting to leave the village for ages. Naruto responded enthusiastically, not one to back down from a challenge. Great! Once you're done eating, I'll give you the rest of the night to undergo some special training. Akira said with a grin. Dinner wrapped up quickly after that. Once Naruto had finished his ramen, Akira took him to a lake at one of the training grounds. As the protagonist of the original series, a Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, a member of the Uzumaki clan, and the reincarnation of Asura, Naruto was already formidable despite being only 7 years old. Akira believed that if Naruto's potential were fully developed, his power could be immense. Even though Naruto was still just a kid who hadn't graduated from the academy, Akira knew that killing him would be no easy feat, even if he opened all 8 gates. For one, the Nine Tails wouldn't want Naruto to die. Otherwise, it wouldn't have lent him chakra in moments of crisis in the original series. Secondly, the Sage of Six Paths was practically omnipresent in the Naruto world, keeping a close eye on everything. If his son's reincarnation were in danger, who knew if he might intervene? Lastly, and most importantly, Naruto was the main character, blessed with a protagonist's luck. Who knew what sort of unexpected developments might occur if someone tried to kill him? So, considering all these factors, Akira thought it would be wise to have Naruto join him. If Naruto could unleash his full power, that would be ideal. But even if he couldn't, having Naruto, someone blessed with the luck of the protagonist by his side, would be like carrying a good luck charm. And who knows, maybe in a crucial moment, Naruto could even talk an enemy into submission. Akira, you said you'd give me special training? What kind of training? Naruto asked, growing curious as they stood by the lake. Naruto, you've met the Nine Tails sealed inside you, right? Akira asked, getting to the point. Yeah, I've met it, Naruto nodded. You have 2 ways to become stronger, Akira explained. First, you could focus on using your own chakra while further strengthening the seal on the Nine Tails. Second, you could tap into the Nine Tails chakra. Either way, you should be able to grow stronger, Akira continued. This was true. In the original series, Naruto had relied heavily on the Nine Tails chakra. But in Akira's view, even without the Nine Tails, Naruto's chakra reserves were almost limitless. Remember when Naruto, before even graduating from the Ninja Academy, used the multi-shadow clone jutsu and created thousands of clones at once? Was that solely due to the Uzumaki clan's physical constitution? And how do you explain the seemingly endless chakra of Hashirama Senju? To Akira, both Naruto and Hashirama were reincarnations of Asura. So, they were both on a different level. While others had chakra, Naruto and Hashirama had Chato-ns of chakra. If not for the influence of the Nine Tails chakra, Akira believed Naruto could have reached the same heights as he did in the original series, even without the fox's power. In that case, I'll choose the second option. If I strengthen the seal further, that fox will be all alone inside, with no one to talk to. That would be too sad, Naruto said after considering Akira's 2 options. He wants to choose the second option because he feels sorry for the Nine Tails being locked up all alone? Akira gave Naruto a strange look, thinking to himself that this was just like Naruto. After all, if Naruto could forgive even Obito, the man who killed his parents, it made sense that he wouldn't harbor hatred for the Nine Tails. In fact, Naruto probably didn't even hold a grudge against the third Hokage. Alright, in that case, let's have a good chat with the Nine Tails. Akira said with a sigh, nodding as he re-entered Naruto's mental space. Humph. You want me to cooperate with this brat? Forget it. The Nine Tails growled as Akira stepped into the seal's space. Before Akira could say anything, the fox had already refused. Though sealed away, the Nine Tails was not completely unaware of what was happening outside. Otherwise, it wouldn't have lent Naruto chakra during moments of danger. There's no need to be so stubborn. Can't we just have a proper conversation? Akira asked, looking at the caged fox. I have nothing to say to you. I hate those eyes of yours. The Nine Tails grumbled, clearly annoyed by Akira's Sharingan. The fox lay down inside the cage, closing its eyes, clearly uninterested in further discussion. So, this is the great Nine Tails, hey? All bark and no bite. Akira smirked. If you're really that upset, why don't you go after Uchiha Madara instead? Or how about Senju Hashirama? He's the one who said you were too powerful and sealed you away. Akira rolled his eyes at the Nine Tails, mocking it without holding back. You? How do you know what Hashirama said back then? The Nine Tails, who had been feigning indifference, suddenly opened its eyes wide in shock, staring at Akira. The fox could never forget how, after Madara used his Sharingan on it, it had no choice but to fight Hashirama. And then Hashirama, living up to his name as the god of shinobi, had unleashed his 1,000-armed Buddha, completely overwhelming the Nine Tails. Even worse, as he claimed the fox was too powerful, Hashirama had sealed it away with ease. That familiar phrase brought back the darkest memories for the Nine Tails. So, can we talk now, Kurama? Akira asked with a small smile, taking a seat outside the cage, showing no signs of leaving anytime soon. Note, if you are interested, you can read up to chapter 136 at patreon.com/mek01. Chapter 102, A Life Simulation for 1 Million Ryo, The Poison Duo Strikes. Who are you really? The Nine Tails' pupils contracted sharply as Uchiha Akira casually mentioned its true name. The beast's gaze locked onto Akira with intense focus. Only the Sage of Six Paths and a few other tailed beasts knew the Nine Tails' name. No one else in the ninja world should have such knowledge. Yet, here was this Uchiha boy, effortlessly revealing the name that the Nine Tails had kept secret for so long. Kurama, do you remember what the Sage of Six Paths once told all of you? Akira sat casually in front of the iron bars of the seal, not in any hurry to answer the Nine Tails' question. Instead, he continued speaking calmly. Naruto is the one the sage spoke of, so it would be wise for you to get along with him. Perhaps you don't know this yet, but let me share another secret with you. Hashirama Senju was the reincarnation of the sage's son, Asura. Naruto Uzumaki is also a reincarnation of Asura. So, in a way, Naruto is the reincarnation of Hashirama Senju as well. You were once sealed by Hashirama. If you form a bond with Naruto and become his companion, there's a good chance he'll one day release the seal on you. Also, don't think that just because you're sealed inside Naruto and he borrows your chakra, that he's taking advantage of you. Honestly, even without sealing you within him, Naruto's chakra reserves would still rival those of Hashirama. So, whether you choose to cooperate is entirely up to you. Akira finished speaking, and his form gradually faded, disappearing from the sealed space. Humph! The Nine Tails snorted as Akira's form vanished. He talks a good game about having a conversation, it muttered. In truth, all Akira had done was ramble on without answering the Nine Tails' question. After saying his piece, he simply left. Was that his idea of a conversation? Despite its grumbling, the Nine Tails couldn't shake the shock from the information Akira had just revealed. He said that Naruto was the reincarnation of Hashirama? And also the reincarnation of the sage's son? Was the prophecy the sage had spoken of referring to this boy, Naruto? But how did this kid know what the sage had told the nine-tailed beasts long ago? If Akira hadn't revealed its true name and recounted things that only Hashirama had said on the battlefield, things only the Nine Tails and Hashirama could have known, the beast wouldn't have taken him seriously. But the fact that Akira knew these details, things he couldn't possibly have overheard, made the Nine Tails reconsider. It seems this Uchiha Akira has a lot of secrets, the Nine Tails mused. And most importantly, he seems to have some very special sources of information knowledge that no one else should have. Naruto Uzumaki, hey? If I really get along with him, will he eventually release my seal? The Nine Tails' voice echoed in the empty sealed space. How did it go? How was your conversation with the Nine Tails? Naruto asked as Akira emerged from the sealed space. It went pretty well, Akira replied with a smile, nodding in satisfaction. Even though they hadn't had a proper conversation, Akira was confident that what he had said would have a significant impact. Though he didn't have the power of Kota Amatsukami like Shisui, Akira believed that his prior knowledge of the entire script gave his words considerable weight. Naruto, you've already mastered chakra extraction, haven't you? Akira asked, moving on from the topic of the Nine Tails. Yeah, I've got the hang of it. Naruto replied enthusiastically. After all, he had spent a year at the Ninja Academy, so he had grasped the basics. While the original story labeled Naruto as the dead last, the truth was that he possessed incredible potential. Good. Today, I'm going to teach you an A-rank forbidden jutsu, the multiple shadow clone technique, Akira announced. Really? Naruto's eyes lit up with excitement. He knew what it meant to learn an A-rank forbidden jutsu, but he quickly became doubtful. But I've only just learned how to extract chakra. Can I really master an A-rank jutsu? It wasn't that Naruto lacked confidence, it was just that the idea of mastering such a powerful technique seemed daunting. A jutsu that powerful surely required an enormous amount of chakra to perform, right? Could a beginner like him really handle it? It was like in martial arts stories, where someone who had just learned to sense their chi was suddenly expected to perform advanced techniques like energy blasts. Could that really be possible? It seems you don't fully understand your own potential yet, Akira chuckled. Your training isn't about increasing your chakra reserves. It's about tapping into the chakra you already have. Besides, if you ever find yourself running low, you can always borrow some from the Nine Tails. So your focus should be on controlling your chakra and mastering jutsu. Yes, in a way, Naruto was like someone born with 1,000 years worth of energy. His goal wasn't to increase that energy but to learn how to control and utilize it effectively. And if he ever needed extra power, there was always the Nine Tails as a backup battery. I'm not sure I fully understand, but I can learn it, right? Naruto said, grinning. He might not grasp all the details, but what mattered was that he was capable of learning an A-rank jutsu. Without wasting time, Akira began explaining the key points of the multiple shadow clone technique. In the original story, Naruto had stolen the Forbidden Scroll one night and, after practicing on his own, had mastered the technique, even producing 1,000 clones on his first try. And most impressively, Naruto had simplified the A-rank jutsu to the point where he could perform it with just one hand sign. Yet people still dared to say Naruto wasn't talented. Then there was the tree climbing exercise during the Chunin exams. Despite Sasuke being hailed as a genius, he and Naruto had both reached the top of the trees by the end of the night. In fact, Naruto had improved faster than Sasuke during that exercise. Even though Sakura had better chakra control and Sasuke was slightly behind her, Naruto, with his notoriously poor control, managed to keep up by sheer force of will and raw chakra. When Jiraiya helped Naruto remove Orochimaru's 5-element seal, Naruto immediately grasped water walking, proving that his talent might even surpass Sasuke's. After Akira finished explaining the technique, Naruto moved off to the side to practice. As for Akira, he lay down nearby, focusing his attention on the life simulator in front of him. A prompt appeared. Would you like to spend 1 million ryo to conduct a life simulation? Now that Akira had reached the early stages of cage level strength, each simulation cost a staggering 1 million ryo. As for where the money came from? Well, he had recently been assigned to a mission on the village's border, a mission requiring a team of several ninjas. Naturally, he needed some funds for the journey, food, lodging, supplies, and so on. So Akira had requested a budget from Fugaku, the Hokage. After much persuasion, he had finally secured a budget of 3 million ryo. Seeing that Naruto was absorbed in his training, Akira turned his attention back to the life simulator. In an instant, 1 million ryo disappeared. The simulator began. You successfully killed the third Hokage, ensuring the success of the Uchiha coup. Your name resounded across the ninja world, with many predicting that your future achievements would rival those of Madara Uchiha. Your 8-man team left Konoha and headed for the border. 10 days later, you neared the border of the Land of Wind. Half a month later, you encountered an elite unit from Tsunagakuer. After a fierce battle, your team sustained only minor injuries and successfully repelled the enemy, establishing your dominance and forcing them to retreat. 18 days later, while en route to the border of the Land of Earth, your team was poisoned. It turns out that Orochimaru and Sasori of the Red Sand, the poison duo of the Akatsuki, had secretly poisoned your group, reducing your combat effectiveness by 70%. At a critical moment, Might Guy opened the 7th gate, but Sasori, controlling his 100 puppets, including the 3rd Kazekage puppet, managed to stall all of you. You attempted to open the 8th gate, but Orochimaru struck first, immobilizing you. You died. The simulation ended, and Akira's face darkened. He hadn't expected that even after reaching cage level, he would still die so easily. So it seems that poison really is a terrifyingly powerful tool in battle. And with Orochimaru and Sasori, the two top poison users in the Naruto world, he was facing the ultimate challenge. In terms of chakra enhancement, jutsu acquisition, and bloodline upgrades, this simulation hadn't yielded much. Was it a waste of 1 million ryo? But when he considered the early warning about this deadly scenario, the cost seemed more like a necessary investment than a waste. Chapter 103, I can't create the Raise Nan, but that doesn't mean I can't teach it. Looking at his own situation, Akira Uchiha considered himself barely at the entry level of cage rank. Might Guy, after opening the 7th gate, could temporarily boost his strength to the cage level. So, in total, they had only 2 cage level fighters. Given that they were both injured and poisoned, it wasn't exactly surprising that they got wiped out by Orochimaru and Sasori of the Red Sand. Also, it's worth mentioning that back in Konoha, when Akira took down the 3rd Hokage, he had to open the 8th gate and use the Dead Gate. This information had likely spread throughout the entire ninja world. So, if Orochimaru and his allies really wanted to take Akira down, it seemed they had already devised a specific strategy to counter him. As a result, Akira hadn't even managed to open the 8th gate before he was killed. This is why, Akira mused, it's always important to keep a trump card or two hidden. If all your abilities are exposed, others can easily devise a counter-strategy against you. Sigh, Akira thought. In the Akatsuki, Orochimaru and Sasori could definitely be called the poison duo, or maybe the science duo. Yet again, this falls on the shoulders of the 3rd Hokage and Danzo. They pushed Orochimaru, a top-tier asset, to defect from Konoha. If Orochimaru maybe we should call him and Orochimaru hadn't defected, Konoha might already have a high-speed rail system by now. Bang, bang, bang. Just as Akira was analyzing the critical information provided by the life simulator, his thoughts were interrupted by a series of loud, firecracker-like sounds. Looking around, Akira saw dozens of Naruto Uzumaki's shadow clones popping into existence. Ha ha ha! I did it! I really am a genius! A-rank jutsu? It's not so tough after all. Ha ha ha! There are so many of them. With this jutsu, am I basically invincible now? Naruto's naturally cheerful personality only heightened his excitement at mastering the multiple shadow clone technique. In one go, he created dozens of clones. The combined chatter of these dozens of Narutos immediately filled the training grounds with noise. Whoosh, whoosh. The commotion was so loud that several Konoha security force ninjas, who were patrolling the area at night, used the body flicker technique to rush over and investigate. However, upon seeing Akira Uchiha present, the members of the security force simply saluted him and quietly left without saying a word. Already? Akira muttered to himself as he watched the scene with a peculiar expression. Even though he knew from the original story that Naruto had mastered the multiple shadow clone technique in one night, seeing it happen with his own eyes was still shocking. Given this, how was it that in the original story, Naruto couldn't even perform the simplest clone technique and almost failed to graduate from the Ninja Academy? That really is one of the great unsolved mysteries of Naruto. Akira, what do you think? Pretty impressive, right? I learned an A-rank jutsu so quickly. Hundreds of shadow clones, each with a proud expression, turned to Akira for validation. With your chakra, a mere few hundred shadow clones is nothing. You can create even more, Akira replied. Really? I guess I really am a genius. You sure have high expectations for me, Akira. Naruto wasn't discouraged by Akira's words. Instead, he looked even more pleased with himself and continued to experiment with the technique. Wait, Naruto. Next, you should practice tree climbing and water walking. Like this, gather chakra at your feet and walk up the tree step by step. Most people don't have much chakra, so even saving a small amount isn't a big deal. But you have an enormous amount of chakra. Even if you save 30% on each jutsu, the amount you save is still massive. And the principle for water walking is similar. Oh, and you can use a few shadow clones to practice simultaneously. When the clones disperse, all the experience will return to you. But be careful not to overdo it. If you create too many clones, the accumulated fatigue could be enough to kill you. That's exactly why the multiple shadow clone technique is classified as a forbidden jutsu. Seeing that it was getting late, Akira had no intention of staying with Naruto throughout his entire training session. After giving Naruto a brief explanation of tree climbing, water walking, and how to use shadow clones to speed up his training, Akira turned and left the training grounds, leaving Naruto to practice on his own. The night passed without incident, and the next morning, Akira was already up and at the village gate. Kakashi, Might Guy, Hayashi Hyuga, Inoichi Yamanaka, Choza Akimichi, and Shikaku Nara had all gathered there, one after another. Akira, are we waiting for someone else? Everyone's here, but you don't seem ready to leave the village yet, Kakashi asked curiously. Yet, we're waiting for one more person, Akira nodded, glancing back toward the village, wondering if Naruto had overslept after training late into the night. Seems like someone who likes to be late, hey. Kakashi muttered under his breath. Akira gave him a peculiar look. Of all the people in their group, Kakashi was probably the least qualified to complain about lateness. In the original story, didn't he always use excuses like getting lost on the road of life or helping old ladies cross the street, excuses he basically copied from Obito Uchiha. Fortunately, Naruto didn't have a habit of being late. After only a few minutes, Naruto came running up, a large backpack slung over his shoulder and various supplies piled on top. The villagers were so enthusiastic. When they heard I was leaving the village, they gave me so much stuff. Sorry I'm late. Naruto apologized. Having been shunned by the villagers for so long, Naruto now found their sudden warmth a bit overwhelming. Naruto Uzumaki? He's coming with us. Kakashi was stunned to see Naruto and looked at Akira with questioning eyes. Likewise, Hayashi Hyuga and the others also showed expressions of surprise. Sure, Akira was only 7 years old. But not every 7-year-old could be as exceptional as Akira. Everyone present was among Konoha's top-tier fighters. So why bring along a burden like Naruto? I'm the captain of this squad, and I believe Naruto Uzumaki is qualified to join us, Akira said to Kakashi, not bothering to explain further. Well, rank has its privileges. Kakashi was just a squad leader in the Anbu, while Akira was the head of the Anbu, making him Kakashi's superior. If Akira believed Naruto was qualified, what could Kakashi say? Shikaku, what do you think? Choza Akimichi asked in a low voice, turning to Shikaku Nara. When in doubt, ask Shikaku. That was a habit Choza had developed over many years. Naruto Uzumaki. If he joins us, it could indeed have some unique benefits. Let's not forget, he has the Uzumaki clan's special chakra and is also the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, Shikaku replied after some thought, nodding in agreement. The Nine Tails Jinchuriki? Well, although they didn't know how well Naruto could use the Nine Tails power, if they were bringing him along, it must have some significance, right? Thus, the 8 of them set off, heading toward the border of the Land of Wind. Back in Konoha, a force of 3,000 ninja was quickly assembling. Akira, last night, I mastered tree climbing and water walking, and I'm now really skilled with the multiple shadow clone technique. Do you have any other powerful jutsu to teach me? After a night of training, Naruto was feeling accomplished and motivated, so he asked Akira eagerly. Since you've mastered the multiple shadow clone technique, it's time to teach you how to create a raise nan, Akira said, glancing at Naruto. A Naruto who can't create a raise nan doesn't have a soul. Raise nan. Naruto looked at Akira curiously. The name didn't sound particularly impressive. The raise nan is an A-rank jutsu developed by the 4th Hokage over 3 years, Akira explained. An A-rank jutsu? Developed by the 4th Hokage, my father. Naruto's eyes lit up at Akira's words. He didn't need to be told how powerful an A-rank jutsu was, the multiple shadow clone technique had already proven its worth. And considering that this was a jutsu created by his own father, Naruto was determined to master it. Wait, Akira, you know how to create a raise nan? Kakashi, who had been listening to their conversation, couldn't help but ask, surprised. No, I don't, but that doesn't mean I can't teach him, Akira replied, shaking his head as he looked at Kakashi. True, Akira didn't know how to create a raise nan, he had never learned. But in the original story, Jiraiya had taught Naruto how to master the raise nan step by step, explaining every detail clearly. So, just because Akira couldn't create a raise nan himself didn't mean he couldn't teach it, right? Chapter 104, 10 million secured, time for another simulation. Well, isn't this something? Hearing Uchiha Akira's words, Kakashi couldn't help but exclaim inwardly, unbelievable. So, he can teach others things he hasn't fully mastered himself? It's like how some people are single yet act like relationship gurus, giving advice to others on how to date. But if it were anyone else saying this, it would just seem like misguided advice or nonsense. However, coming from Uchiha Akira. I've heard some rumors. Akira, do you also know how to perform the Chidori? After a brief pause, Kakashi asked Uchiha Akira directly. Chidori was the one jutsu Kakashi had spent years developing, his unique creation. Yet, there were whispers that Uchiha Akira could use it as well. Kakashi had always been curious about this, and now that the opportunity had arisen, he naturally had to ask. Of course. Uchiha Akira responded candidly with a nod. Then, without a hint of shame, he added, just because you created the Chidori, doesn't mean someone else couldn't come up with it too, right? Lightning release techniques can often overlap. Isn't there a saying that goes, if there's a resemblance, it's purely coincidental? Kakashi's eyebrow twitched slightly at this, his expression as if asking, do you really think I'm that gullible? He admitted to knowing it, but as for how he learned it, Uchiha Akira wasn't about to share that. During his time using the life simulator, he had encountered Kakashi more than a few times, even getting caught up in a storyline where Naruto had taken him out. After Shisui-sensei died and left him 2 million ryo in inheritance, Akira had immediately used it for a simulation, selecting jutsu learning experiences. With his Sharingan's 3-tomo activation, he had witnessed Kakashi using Chidori countless times in the life simulator. Combined with his own dual affinity for lightning and fire, it was natural that he had mastered Chidori within the simulator. Kakashi earned his title as the copy ninja with just one Sharingan, so why shouldn't others learn from him? Remember in the original story when Lee used the shadow of the dancing leaf on Sasuke during the Chunin exams, and Sasuke immediately copied it to create the lion's barrage? And Naruto, he was even more shameless, not even bothering to change the name, just calling it Naruto Uzumaki Barrage. So, it's fitting that Kakashi's disciples are also adept at copying techniques, right? As for what Kakashi was thinking at the moment, well, Uchiha Akira then pulled out a balloon and began instructing Naruto on how to train by making the balloon burst. By the way, Kakashi, why don't you demonstrate the Raise Nan for Naruto? After explaining the training method, Uchiha Akira turned to Kakashi with a request. Upon hearing this, Kakashi's expression turned to one of pure resignation. So now you're going to use me as your demonstration tool? What's the matter? You're the 4th Hokage's student, aren't you? Surely you know how to use Raise Nan. Or is it that you don't want Naruto to learn it? Uchiha Akira teased, noticing Kakashi's reluctant look. Sighing, Kakashi realized he had no choice. If he didn't demonstrate the Raise Nan, it would either imply that he couldn't use it, or that he didn't want to teach it to Naruto. So, Kakashi raised his hand, and in no time, a Raise Nan the size of a small ball appeared in his palm. Naruto, this is the Raise Nan. The key feature is that it doesn't require any hand seals, making it very convenient to use. Using Kakashi as a tool for the demonstration, Uchiha Akira then turned to Naruto and said, "All right, Naruto, got it." "Yes, I got it." Naruto nodded vigorously, full of motivation to train. "By the way, Kakashi, you know Raise Nan, but I've rarely seen you use it," Uchiha Akira remarked after noticing Naruto had already started practicing on his own. "This jutsu is powerful, but it doesn't suit my style. It lacks the piercing speed of lightning release, making it harder to land a hit, and it consumes a lot of chakra," Kakashi explained, shaking his head. That makes sense, Uchiha Akira thought. While the Raise Nan is indeed strong, it doesn't have the same destructive power as Chidori. The Sharingan enhances vision, and lightning release boosts cellular activity, so Chidori's rapid thrusts naturally have a higher hit rate than the Raise Nan. Given Kakashi's limited chakra reserves, it's no wonder he's cautious about using it. As for Naruto in the original story, well, that's a different matter. While everyone else had to manage their chakra carefully, Naruto was like a player in infinite energy mode, tossing Raise Nans left and right without a care. Whenever Naruto tapped into the Nine Tails chakra, he could summon hundreds of shadow clones, each wielding a massive Raise Nan to smash into the Nine Tails. The name Chakra Beast wasn't an exaggeration. So, with Kakashi as a reference, Uchiha Akira decided that Chidori was indeed more suited to him than Raise Nan. "Ha ha ha," Might Guy chuckled, clearly enjoying Kakashi's moment of discomfort. After all these years of rivalry, seeing Kakashi in a tough spot was a rare treat for him. Raise Nan is indeed a powerful jutsu, but it's an A-rank technique. Isn't it a bit late to start training it now? Hyuga Hayashi commented, surprised. It made sense. They were already on their way to the border of the Land of Wind, with about 10 days left before they arrived. Starting to learn a new jutsu now seemed like terrible timing. Although Hayashi wasn't worried about Naruto's chakra, being the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, learning a jutsu wasn't just about having lots of chakra. "Hayashi-sama, care to make a bet? Let's see if Naruto can master the Raise Nan before we reach the Land of Wind's border," Uchiha Akira suggested with a smile. "Oh? And what's the wager?" Hayashi asked, intrigued by Uchiha Akira's confidence, though he still believed Naruto didn't have a chance of learning the Raise Nan so quickly. "If you win, I'll give you a secret one that involves evolving the Byakugan into the Tenseigan. How does that sound?" Uchiha Akira proposed with a grin. The Byakugan evolving into the Tenseigan. Hayashi's face showed shock. The Byakugan could evolve into something called the Tenseigan? What do you mean? Hayashi asked, shaken by the revelation. "Well, you'll find out if you win the bet," Uchiha Akira replied with a light chuckle. "All right, but what do you want if you win?" After a brief pause, considering that his chances of winning were high, Hayashi nodded and asked. Just a small price, a 10 million ryo, perhaps. Uchiha Akira suggested after a moment of thought. Everyone in the squad exchanged curious glances. Uchiha Akira was known for being a bit of a penny pincher, but it seemed that his reputation was well deserved. Fine, 10 million it is, Hayashi agreed without much hesitation. As the head of the Hyuga clan, he was quite wealthy, so the amount didn't faze him. Seeing Hayashi agree, Uchiha Akira couldn't help but smile. That's 10 million ryo in the bag. With that, I can afford another simulation, even at cage level. Suddenly, Hayashi seemed much more agreeable in Uchiha Akira's eyes. After all, he was unknowingly investing in his future son-in-law's ninja training. The old man had no idea what kind of talent Naruto really had. With that, Uchiha Akira turned to glance at Naruto. This whole bet is really just a way to showcase Naruto's abilities to his future father-in-law. Once Hayashi sees Naruto's potential with his own eyes, he'll be practically begging to give Hinata's hand in marriage, dowry be damned. We're doomed. Shikaku muttered to himself, shaking his head after witnessing Uchiha Akira and Hayashi seal the deal. Oh? Shikaku, do you think Hayashi-sama will lose? Akimichi Choza asked, puzzled by Shikaku's reaction. Whether Hayashi wins or loses, I'm certain you'll end up losing, Shikaku replied, glancing sympathetically at Choza. What does that mean? Choza thought, utterly confused. This bet is between Hayashi-sama and Uchiha Akira. What does it have to do with me? Well, there's a town not far ahead. It's almost time for lunch. How about we stop there for a meal? Yamanaka Inoichi suggested at that moment. Sounds good. Uchiha Akira, acting as the squad leader, agreed with a nod. Once they arrived in the town, Choza's eyes immediately locked onto a barbecue restaurant. I've been here a few times before. Their grilled meat is amazing, he said, enthusiastically recommending the place. However, Uchiha Akira coughed lightly and objected, grilled meat isn't suitable. It's too greasy and won't be good for travel. We should grab some rice balls instead. When we're out on a mission, we should embrace a spirit of endurance. Didn't the Hokage give you a 3 million ryo budget for this mission? Kakashi asked, puzzled by Uchiha Akira's insistence, given the funds they had. We need to be frugal with our spending. It's only the first day, after all. We can't go splurging on luxuries, Uchiha Akira replied without missing a beat, leading the way to a shop selling rice balls. I knew it. Shikaku sighed, muttering to himself with a mix of amusement and resignation. At Shikaku's words, Choza suddenly realized what he had meant earlier. So that's why he said I'd lose. Given my appetite, how could a few rice balls possibly satisfy me? Damn it, I thought 3 million ryo would be enough for 3 simulations. But at this rate, I'll be lucky if it's enough for 2. Uchiha Akira grumbled as he watched Choza and Naruto compete in a rice ball eating contest, both devouring hundreds of rice balls. Chapter 105, The Second Million Level Life Simulation. Uchiha Akira regretted it, feeling like the biggest fool in existence. This mission to the border was supposed to be about showcasing Konoha's strength and deterring other ninja villages from making any reckless moves. Yet, he had foolishly brought along Akimichi Choza. Granted, the Inoshikacho trio is one of Konoha's top combinations. When the three of them team up, their synergy is so strong that it's not an exaggeration to say they could rival a cage-level opponent. But Choza's appetite? That was truly terrifying. This guy could easily eat enough for 10 people on his own. And as if bringing Choza wasn't enough, he had also foolishly brought Uzumaki Naruto along. Even though Naruto was just a 7-year-old kid, his appetite might be even scarier than Choza's. That will be 13,000 ryo, the young woman selling rice balls said cheerfully, holding out her hand to Uchiha Akira. One meal cost 13,000 ryo. Uchiha Akira thought, grumbling internally as he handed over the money, his heart bleeding as he silently cursed Choza and Naruto for their monstrous appetites. Only 13,000 ryo for that meal? That's pretty cheap, actually, Kakashi remarked, turning his head slightly to glance at Uchiha Akira, deliberately trying to provoke him. But Kakashi wasn't just teasing Uchiha Akira, he was making a point. The quality of their meals had been somewhat lacking. There were 8 of them, and both Naruto and Choza could each eat as much as 10 people. So, in total, their meal had been equivalent to what 30 people would consume. And yet, the total bill was only 13,000 ryo, averaging out to just over 400 ryo per person. What can 400 ryo even buy? If you convert that into the currency from his previous life, it would only be around 40 yuan. Imagine a group of high-ranking jonin, clan leaders and elite shinobi, gathering for a meal that cost 40 yuan per person. It was like a group of corporate CEOs sitting down to eat at a street food stall. Cough, cough. All right, everyone full? Let's get moving. Uchiha Akira said after a moment, realizing that maybe it wasn't as bad as he initially thought. Clearing his throat, he gave the order to continue their journey. That night, the 8 men didn't bother with formalities. Instead of renting 8 rooms, Uchiha Akira rented 4, saying it was so they could look out for each other. After all, who knows what dangers we might encounter out here. But honestly, the idea that a group of elite jonin would be afraid to sleep alone because it might be dangerous was laughable. Those 4 rooms cost over 10,000 ryo for one night's stay. This isn't going to work. Maybe we should consider camping out in the wild to save money, Uchiha Akira mused. Too bad Yamato isn't here. If he were, he could use his wood release to build a house, and we could even sell it when we leave. Speaking of which, Uchiha Akira thought, there's also the matter of Orochimaru and Sasori. The simulator said they would use poison, but it didn't show exactly how. That could be troublesome. He reflected on how Naruto had appreciated his confidence in their bet with Hayashi, feeling a growing sense of loyalty from the boy. If it were the night of the Uchiha massacre, Naruto might have ended up on the opposing side. But now, with the Uchiha clan holding power, Naruto's strength is effectively Konoha's strength, and by extension, the Uchiha's strength. It's only right to invest in his growth. Lying in a 2-person room, Uchiha Akira was already in bed, while Naruto was still outside, likely continuing his relentless training with the raised Nan. Uchiha Akira felt a sense of pride in the boy's determination. His thoughts were a jumble as he gradually drifted off to sleep. In the middle of the night, Uchiha Akira noticed Naruto returning to the room but didn't pay it much mind. Then, early the next morning, Naruto proudly announced that he had managed to burst the balloon, surprising Uchiha Akira with his rapid progress and natural talent for ninjutsu. Kakashi and the others were equally stunned. He managed to pop the balloon so quickly? It was an impressive rate of progress. Having anticipated this, Uchiha Akira handed Naruto a rubber ball as the next step in his training. And so, the group from Konoha continued on their journey, with Naruto practicing the raised Nan during every break they took. A week passed in a flash. One night, the group camped out in the wild, with Kakashi using earth release to construct makeshift shelters to keep the rain off. Naruto's training had hit a bottleneck in the final stage of mastering the raised Nan, maintaining its power while also controlling its stability, a challenging feat. In the original story, Naruto mastered this within a week, but now, due to the constant travel, he had less time to dedicate to training. Thankfully, Naruto had the advantage of training with his shadow clones, so his progress wasn't too far off. As he lay on the ground to rest, Uchiha Akira finally gave in to temptation and started his second life simulation. They were nearing the land of Wind's border, and who knew what dangers awaited them there. The chakra extraction feature in the life simulator could effectively serve as a cheat, instantly restoring him to full health and chakra reserves, so Uchiha Akira decided to prepare in advance. Unfortunately, Orochimaru and Sasori's attack would primarily involve poison, and while the life simulator could restore health and chakra, it couldn't cure poisoning. Sighing, Uchiha Akira selected his options, watching as another 1 million ryo vanished into thin air as the new simulation began. 3 days later, you reach the land of Wind's border. Uzumaki Naruto has mastered the basics of the raised Nan. 8 days later, your group encounters a squad of elite Sand Village shinobi. After a fierce battle, you repel them with only minor injuries, successfully deterring the Sand Village forces. 10 days later, your group is ambushed by Orochimaru and Sasori. Both sides suffer heavy injuries, and the 2 villains retreat. Half a month later, your entire squad is wounded. You realize that going to the land of Earth for further deterrence is no longer feasible. After a discussion, you prepare to retreat but encounter one of the legendary Sunin, Jiraiya. Jiraiya joins your team, and you set off for the land of Earth's border. At the land of Earth's border, you engage in a prolonged battle with the elite forces of the Stone Village. The conflict drags on for 10 days, with neither side able to gain the upper hand. A month later, you engage the Stone Village forces again. This time, the third Tsuchikage, Oniki, appears on the battlefield. You are caught off guard by a dust release sneak attack and die. Please choose a reward from the simulation. Option 1, all learned knowledge, skills and combat experience. Option 2, an increase in chakra reserves. Option 3, bloodline awakening status. What the hell? Uchiha Akira cursed internally as he reviewed the simulation results. He had initially thought that reaching cage level would significantly improve his chances of survival. Yet, in 2 consecutive simulations, he had died within a month each time. So, the stronger I get, the faster I die? During the Uchiha massacre, if I had just laid low and left the village, I might have lived a few more years. But now, as a cage-level ninja, I'm dying even faster? The first time, he had been poisoned while injured, facing 2 cage-level opponents, Orochimaru and Sasori, which was understandable. But this time? Are you kidding me? Uchiha Akira thought. After a few skirmishes, Oniki himself decides to intervene? And on top of that, I died from a dust-release sneak attack? The third Tsuchikage, Oniki, resorted to ambushing a 7-year-old kid? At this moment, Uchiha Akira realized he might have misjudged the third Hokage. It wasn't just Hiruzen Sarutobi, all the older, long-lived shinobi seemed to be this shameless. Still, he needed to analyze the situation despite his frustration. So, we'll run into Jiraiya soon? Uchiha Akira mused, looking forward to it. With his Sage mode, Jiraiya's strength was among the top even within the cage level. But Oniki resorting to such underhanded tactics to eliminate him? It seemed the old Tsuchikage was determined to take him out. Could it be because he once faced Uchiha Madara and was left with deep psychological scars? And now that rumors are spreading that I might reach Madara's level, he feels compelled to kill me before I can fully develop? Although my current strength is cage level, compared to someone like Madara, I'm still just in the budding stage. This life simulation was meant to prepare him by exploiting the full heal bug, so he didn't extract the chakra reward yet, saving it for later when it might be more critical. This life simulator is really turning out to be like the Senzu beans from Dragon Ball, Uchiha Akira thought. After 3 more days of travel, Uchiha Akira and his group finally reached the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Wind. Uchiha Akira, looks like you've lost the bet, Hayashi Hyuga said, finally relaxing after days of tension, smiling at Uchiha Akira. Naruto, show him your Raise Nan. I know you've already mastered it, Uchiha Akira responded calmly, looking at Uzumaki Naruto. The life simulator had predicted that Naruto would fully master the Raise Nan by the time they reached the border, so Uchiha Akira was confident in his response. Chapter 106, Turning the Tables, Counterattack against Orochimaru and Sasori. Just when Hayashi Hyuga thought he could finally relax, he was taken aback by Uchiha Akira's words and found himself growing tense again. Could Naruto Uzumaki have really learned the Raise Nan, an A-rank jutsu, in just 10 days? And to master it while traveling? How could that even be possible? Akira, I was planning to surprise you by using the Raise Nan during an enemy attack, but you already knew I mastered it. Naruto Uzumaki scratched his head with a sheepish grin, revealing his secret. Did you really master it? Kakashi couldn't help but look at Naruto in astonishment. An A-rank jutsu, learned while on the move? Meanwhile, the members of the Inoshikacho trio were equally stunned as they stared at Naruto. As former close allies of the 4th Hokage, they understood the significance of the Raise Nan. They also knew how difficult it was to learn. But now? It had only been a short time. So this is the son of the 4th Hokage? His talent is truly monstrous. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Naruto couldn't help but smile proudly. He felt that all the hard work he had put into squeezing in time to train the Raise Nan over the past few days had finally paid off. Raising his hand, Naruto began to gather chakra in his palm. Soon enough, a fully formed Raise Nan appeared in his hand. It really is the Raise Nan. Seeing the jutsu in Naruto's hand, Hayashi Hyuga and the others couldn't help but express their amazement. He actually mastered this A-rank jutsu while traveling? So, Hayashi-sama, about the 10 million ryo. Although Uchiha Akira had already known this from the life simulator, seeing Naruto successfully perform the Raise Nan in person still brought him a sense of relief. He turned to Hayashi, reminding him of their bet. Sai, a bet is a bet. I'll send you the 10 million ryo when we return to the village, Hayashi replied with a helpless sigh. What? We have to wait until we get back to the village. Akira's expression fell. The sooner I get the money, the sooner I can do another draw, and the faster my strength will grow. But now, he had to wait until they returned to the village? I can't just carry 10 million ryo in cash around with me, can I? Hayashi said, half amused by Akira's expression. As the head of the Hyuga clan, I'm not going to skip out on paying 10 million ryo. Fine, fine. Uchiha Akira sighed in resignation. What else can I do? No wonder he's the son of the fourth Hokage. His talent is truly extraordinary. It's no wonder Akira decided to bring him along to experience war early. It's not a bad idea at all, commented the members of the Inoshikacho trio and Might Guy. They had originally been puzzled when Akira decided to bring Naruto along, thinking he might be a burden. But now, after witnessing Naruto's exceptional talent firsthand, they could accept him as part of the group. With such remarkable talent for ninjutsu, and as the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, Naruto could prove to be invaluable in critical moments. Indeed, mastering the Raise Nan is something worth celebrating, but I encourage you to continue learning and further developing this jutsu, Akira advised, recalling the powerful variations of the Raise Nan in the original story, like the Big Ball Raise Nan and the Wind Release, Rasen Shuriken. After all, the A-rank Raise Nan was just the beginning. Further development? Got it, I'll do my best. Naruto's face fell a little at the thought. I'm only 7 years old, barely a year into the Ninja Academy, and now I'm expected to further develop an A-rank jutsu? That's not just difficult, it's practically impossible. After encouraging Naruto, Akira and the group began their patrol along the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Wind, searching for Sand Village ninjas and flexing Konoha's military might. As they patrolled, Akira couldn't help but reflect on Naruto's progress. Thanks to my involvement, Naruto has managed to perform the Raise Nan with just one hand, something he couldn't do in the original timeline. In the original story, Naruto needed a shadow clone to help stabilize the chakra, even when performing the Big Ball Raise Nan or Rasen Shuriken. But now, without needing any inspiration from seeing a cat play with a ball, Naruto can create a Raise Nan single-handedly. This should make the jutsu much easier for him to use. Patrolling naturally fell to Hiashi Hyuga, whose Byakugan provided unmatched reconnaissance abilities. While the Sharingan had exceptional dynamic vision, it lacked the Byakugan's full circle field of vision and superior detection capabilities. A fully developed Byakugan could provide 360-degree vision, making it impossible to approach a Hyuga unnoticed. Also, the Byakugan had both telescopic and X-ray vision. So, even if you tried to blindfold a Hyuga, it wouldn't work. The Byakugan was like an all-encompassing radar. As the Hyuga clan leader, Hayashi's abilities had reached the level of an elite Jonin, with the potential to reach Kage level in a few more years. His Byakugan could survey a vast area. Using the Byakugan's abilities as the primary tool for patrol, Uchiha Akira's group searched the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Wind. In the blink of an eye, 4 or 5 days had passed. One evening, after finishing their patrol, the group gathered for dinner. Might Guy, sitting beside Uchiha Akira, noticed something on his mind. Akira, you've seemed preoccupied these past few days. Is something bothering you? Yeah, there is, Akira replied, glancing at Might Guy. What's on your mind? You can tell us, Guy encouraged. Do you remember when we returned to Konoha from the Cloud Village? Akira asked after a moment of hesitation. Of course, I remember. Guy nodded. Suddenly, it seemed to dawn on him, and his expression changed. Akira, do you mean we're going to be attacked again? Might Guy had witnessed firsthand Akira's ability to foresee future dangers, especially during Orochimaru's previous attack. So when Akira hinted at another attack, Guy took it seriously. Indeed, and this time, it will be an attack by Orochimaru and Sasori of the Red Sand, Akira admitted. It wouldn't help anyone to hide the impending threat. Guy immediately gathered everyone together, and Akira informed them of the impending attack by Orochimaru and Sasori. Orochimaru? Sasori of the Red Sand? Why would they target us? The group's expressions turned grim as they processed the news. Shikaku, do you have a strategy in mind? Akimichi Choza asked, turning to Nara Shikaku. When in doubt, ask Shikaku. This was a common understanding in Konoha. If we weren't forewarned, this could indeed be very dangerous, Shikaku began, analyzing the situation. Orochimaru is one of the Sunin and an S-rank missing nin from our own village. And Sasori is a genius puppeteer from the Sand Village, known for his deadly poisons and for wiping out entire small countries by himself. If these two plan to ambush us, the consequences could be dire. Fortunately, we know about the attack in advance. Everyone remained silent, focusing on Shikaku as he continued to assess the situation. Oh, and don't forget that both Orochimaru and Sasori are masters of poison, Akira reminded them, thinking back to his first life simulation where they had all been poisoned. Right, puppeteers are known for their use of poison, and Sasori is the best of the best, Shikaku agreed, nodding. And Orochimaru, with his summoning techniques involving snakes, is also a poison expert. We'll need to be on guard against being poisoned. Shikaku took note of Akira's warning and began formulating a strategy. If we know about the attack beforehand, we can turn this into an opportunity. Yes, Orochimaru and Sasori were two of the most feared cage-level shinobi in the world, but their team was made up of Konoha's elite. There's a real chance we can win this. With that in mind, Shikaku outlined his plan, and the more he spoke, the clearer their strategy became. Support me on Patreon at patreon.com/MEK01 to read up to chapter 152. Help me climb the power rankings by voting with more power stones. Chapter 107, Tsunade returns to the village. Jiraiya confronts the Hokage. In a gambling den on a busy street in the Land of Lightning, a blonde woman stared intently at the dice cup on the table. However, the gamblers around her only pretended to glance casually before focusing their attention on the cup. This woman was well known among the gambling circles, a notorious easy mark. She appeared to be a young woman in her 20s, with attractive features and a voluptuous figure, her pigtails adding a youthful flair. Yet, in reality, she was already 50 years old. At this moment, Tsunade's eyes were glued to the dice cup. Open! The dealer called out as he lifted the cup. 233, 8 points, small. The dealer announced the results loudly after examining the dice. Immediately, the last of Tsunade's money was swept away. With a sigh, Tsunade shook her head resignedly and stood up to leave. She had come with high spirits and 5 million ryo, ready to make a killing. But now, having lost everything, Tsunade felt it was time to cool off. Tsunade-sama, are you done? Why don't you sit down and play a bit more? Just as Tsunade turned to leave, a teenage girl approached her, holding a small box. What's there to play with when all is lost? Tsunade retorted, shaking her head. Well, I've gathered some money here, 1.2 million ryo, the girl said as she opened the box she was holding, revealing stacks of money inside. Oh! Tsunade's eyes sparkled at the sight of the 1.2 million ryo. Cool off? What was there to cool off about? There's a saying about hitting rock bottom and bouncing back. Tsunade was convinced now was her chance to turn things around. Well done! Tsunade's spirits lifted instantly, and she praised the girl enthusiastically as she grabbed the box of money. She turned around with such a presence, one might expect a dramatic soundtrack to herald her return to the gambling tables. Wait a minute! Tsunade stopped suddenly, turning back to look intently at the girl beside her. Tsunade-sama, why are you looking at me like that? The girl asked, her eyes darting away, unable to meet Tsunade's probing gaze. Weren't you always telling me not to gamble? What's gotten into you today? Tsunade's penetrating stare made the girl extremely uncomfortable. I just thought, well... The girl stammered, struggling to find a suitable excuse. Watching the girl fumble for words, Tsunade turned and walked out of the gambling den. Tsunade-sama, wait! The girl called out, trying to stop her. But the more she tried to intervene, the more Tsunade felt something was off. She stepped outside the gambling den, and everything seemed normal at first glance. After a moment of contemplation, Tsunade extended her sensory abilities to pick up on the surrounding conversations. She overheard talk of ninja movements in the Land of Lightning, preparing to move toward the border of the Land of Fire. Was the Land of Lightning planning an attack on the Land of Fire? Now seemed like a rare opportunity. Konoha was in disarray. Uchiha Akira had assassinated the third Hokage to take his place. Now, with the village's defenses at their weakest, the Raikage was planning to invade. This news stunned Tsunade. She stood frozen in place. The third Hokage was dead? Though she had her grievances with the third Hokage, sadness was the predominant feeling now. After all, she had been his student for many years. Moreover, was Konoha really so vulnerable now that the Land of Lightning thought it an opportune time to invade? The village was founded by the joint efforts of the Senju and the Uchiha. It embodied her grandfather's ideals and efforts. Though now the last of the Senju, Tsunade couldn't just stand by and watch Konoha face such peril. Unlike Orochimaru and Jiraiya, Tsunade's connection to the village was different. After a brief silence, she said, Shizuan, let's go. It's been years since I've been back to Konoha. Yes, Tsunade-sama. Shizuan replied, carefully observing Tsunade, who seemed to bear the news without visible sadness. Shizune had hesitated to inform Tsunade about the third Hokage's death, fearing it would sadden her. But it seemed Tsunade was stronger than she had anticipated. As Tsunade prepared to return to Konoha, Jiraiya had already arrived in the village and went straight to the Hokage's office to confront the new fifth Hokage, Uchiha Fugaku. Though he could guess what had transpired, Jiraiya still sought to understand the specifics of the Uchiha coup. Fugaku, now the Hokage, faced Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sunin and a formidable shinobi of Konoha. Naturally, he didn't want to alienate him. As Hokage, Fugaku's responsibilities extended beyond the Uchiha clan to the entire village and the Land of Fire. If Jiraiya could be persuaded to stay, Fugaku was determined to keep him. Fugaku recounted how Danzo had attacked Uchiha Itachi, attempting to steal his Mangekyo Sharingan, and how the third Hokage and Danzo had conspired with the Anbu en route to carry out the massacre of the Uchiha clan. Hearing Fugaku's explanation, Jiraiya sighed inwardly. It was indeed typical of the third Hokage, though this time he had gone too far. Uchiha Akira, the 7-year-old prodigy, hey? Konoha does breed talent, especially among the Uchiha, Jiraiya reflected internally. Now that Konoha is at its most vulnerable, its top combatants are mostly gone. After discussing the situation, Jiraiya made it clear he had no intention of intervening. He understood the Uchiha's actions and held no love for the third Hokage. Despite Fugaku's hopes, Jiraiya firmly rejected the notion of serving under him. Hearing Jiraiya's decisive refusal, Fugaku sighed in resignation. It wasn't easy to win over someone like Jiraiya. Now, with Konoha's strength so depleted, every shinobi mattered more than ever. If only Minato, the White Fang, Itachi, or any of them were here. Fugaku lamented the loss of Konoha's greatest shinobi. And what about Uzumaki Naruto? Jiraiya asked, focusing on what mattered most to him. Naruto has left for the border, Fugaku replied honestly. You sent a 7-year-old to the border? Are you trying to kill him? Jiraiya's anger flared, suspecting Fugaku had sinister motives. Fugaku, unfazed, met Jiraiya's gaze with the calm of one who commands the village's fate. As tensions rose, his Sharingan evolved before Jiraiya's eyes, signaling his readiness to defend his actions, regardless of Jiraiya's legendary status. After a tense standoff, Jiraiya left without a fight, heading straight for the Land of Wind's border to see for himself. Meanwhile, at the Land of Wind's border, Uchiha Akira and his team had been patrolling for days when they finally encountered an elite squad from the Sand Village crossing into the Land of Fire. Chapter 108, Kakashi, have you ever considered that your eye might be a Mangeki? We've located the enemy. It appears to be an elite vanguard unit from Tsunagakuer, approximately 6 kilometers from our current position, Higa Hayashi reported, veins bulging around his eyes as he fully activated his Byakugan. He detailed the scene he observed down to the smallest detail. There are a total of 24 individuals, and from their movements, it's clear they're all Jainin. These will be tough opponents, Hayashi continued. Uchiha Akira couldn't help but mentally note the capabilities of the Byakugan. The Byakugan might not match the Sharingan in combat, but in terms of its functionality for group battles, it far surpasses the Sharingan, he mused. Despite the 6-kilometer distance and the trees obstructing the view, Hayashi could see the enemy's movements with precision. The combination of telescopic and X-ray vision made the Byakugan an impressive tool. 24 Jainin? This will be a difficult battle, Kakashi remarked, his expression grim after hearing the enemy's numbers and strength. There were only 8 of them on their side, including Naruto, who likely wouldn't be much help in such a high-level battle. This meant that each of them would have to take on at least 4 Jainin. Although they outnumber us, our high-level combat strength is superior, and we have the advantage of surprise. If we set traps in advance, we might just be able to turn the tide, Narashikaku suggested, offering his tactical insight. For Jainin, a 6-kilometer distance could be covered in no time. Based on the enemy's route, Uchiha Akira and his team quickly identified a suitable location for an ambush. The 24 Jainin team from Tsunagakuer was likely part of their spearhead strategy. Such a team could ensure their safety while gathering intelligence on the Land of Fire's defenses. As the wind rustled the leaves, the first 2 Tsunagakuer ninjas appeared, advancing toward the trap Uchiha Akira's team had set. The terrain at the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Wind was sparse, with low shrubs that offered little cover. The 2 ninjas moved swiftly, passing by without triggering any traps. Their caution paid off. They weren't actual ninjas but puppets sent ahead to scout. About 30 seconds later, the real Jainin followed in the puppet's wake, emerging from the shadows. Suddenly, the sound of paper burning echoed through the air. Scatter! The lead Tsunagakuer Jainin shouted, recognizing the sound of exploding tags. At that moment, Yamanaka Inoichi had already targeted one of the enemy ninjas, using his mind-body switch technique to take control and force the puppet to stab a comrade. The unexpected attack caught the other ninja off guard, causing serious injury. Simultaneously, Shikaku, disguised as a rock, sprang into action. Forming a series of hand signs, he extended multiple shadow tendrils to ensnare the shadows of several Jainin. As explosions from the traps detonated around them, chaos erupted within the Tsunagakuer ranks. Despite their numerical superiority, the ambush caught them completely off guard, causing significant casualties. Akimichichsa followed up with his partial expansion jutsu, transforming into a massive human boulder and rolling into the disarrayed enemy ranks. Meanwhile, Might Guy opened 4 of the 8 gates, and Uchiha Akira unleashed a massive fireball jutsu. Despite being a B-rank technique, the attack, powered by his cage-level chakra, devastated the Jainin, who cried out in pain as the fire engulfed them. Kakashi, wielding his Reikari, moved like a shadow among the chaos, striking down enemies with precision. The battlefield became a chaotic mess, with the Tsunagakuer ninjas overwhelmed by the ferocity of the ambush. Though outnumbered, the Konoha ninjas fought with unmatched intensity. The Tsunagakuer Jainin quickly regrouped and attempted to mount a counterattack, but Uchiha Akira's sheer power enhanced by opening 5 of the 8 gates proved too overwhelming. His jutsu, amplified beyond their normal rank, inflicted devastating damage on the enemy. After just 5 minutes of intense combat, the Tsunagakuer forces retreated. They had arrived with 24 Jainin and left 6 dead on the battlefield, along with a scattering of shattered puppets. However, Konoha's side didn't escape unscathed. Chise, who had acted as the team's tank, was covered in injuries and had been poisoned, no surprise, given that puppet masters were rarely without their poisons. Kakashi also sustained serious injuries. It wasn't that Kakashi lacked skill, rather, the intensity of the battle, with all participants at the Jainin level, was far beyond Naruto's expectations. Witnessing such brutal combat for the first time left Naruto in a state of shock, unable to react. Sensing Naruto's paralysis, a group of Tsunagakuer ninjas targeted him. Kakashi, in an attempt to protect Naruto, was gravely injured in the process. Kakashi's selflessness, perhaps a contrast to his portrayal in the original story, where he seemed to favor Sasuke by teaching him the Chidori, leaving Naruto to learn tree climbing on his own. This time, Kakashi's actions might have earned him more respect. Treat Kakashi and Chisa's injuries immediately, Shikaku ordered. Despite their careful planning and the successful ambush, facing 24 Jainin with just 7 was an incredible challenge. The results were impressive, but the battle was taxing. Uchiha Akira's display of overwhelming power after opening 5 gates left Shikaku and the others in awe. Although they had heard of his strength, he had, after all, killed the 3rd Hokage. They had never witnessed it firsthand. Now, they were truly impressed by his capabilities. Akira's leadership and power as the head of Konoha's Anbu and the leader of their current mission were undeniable. Akira, everyone, I'm so sorry. Naruto stepped forward, his face filled with guilt as he looked at the others, especially Kakashi, who had been injured saving him. He felt deeply ashamed. Naruto had mastered 2 A-rank jutsu, the Raise Nan and the multi-shadow clone jutsu. He had hoped to prove himself in battle, but the reality of war had shattered his expectations. Not only had he failed to contribute, but he had also become a burden, and the guilt weighed heavily on him. It's okay, your reaction is normal. You'll adapt in time, Uchiha Akira reassured Naruto, showing him understanding rather than reprimand. The others nodded in agreement. After all, Naruto was just a 7-year-old child, witnessing such violence for the first time. It was natural for him to freeze up in the face of such carnage. Akira, everyone, I promise, next time we face an attack, I won't be a burden, I swear it. Naruto declared, his voice trembling with determination. Whether the vow was meant for the others or for himself, it was clear that Naruto was resolved to improve. Gentlemen, while these Tsunagakuer ninjas were formidable, our real crisis is just beginning, Akira warned, his tone serious. In his earlier simulation, Akira had seen that after defeating the elite Tsunagakuer forces, the greatest threat would come from the imminent attack by Orochimaru and Sasori. Hearing this, Kakashi and the others tensed, nodding in agreement. They knew that facing two cage-level opponents like Orochimaru and Sasori was a daunting task, even with preparations in place. The group focused on treating Kakashi and Chiza's poison-induced injuries. Kakashi's condition was particularly severe, with a fractured left wrist that would limit his combat effectiveness in the near future. That evening, with little else to do, Kakashi took the time to coach Naruto on some of the finer points of the Raise Nan. Having mastered the technique years ago, Kakashi was well equipped to guide Naruto, who was still a beginner. After Naruto resumed his training, Uchiha Akira approached Kakashi. "Kakashi, you seem to have grown quite accustomed to your Sharingan," Akira commented casually. "Yes, this eye has been with me for many years. I've grown used to its power," Kakashi replied, his voice tinged with sadness as memories of Obito surfaced. "Have you ever considered taking your Sharingan to the next level?" Akira asked, probing deeper. "The next level? The Manjiki? That's impossible, I don't have Uchiha blood." Kakashi responded, shaking his head at the notion. It was already remarkable that he could wield the Sharingan without being an Uchiha, but expecting it to evolve further seemed absurd. "Have you ever thought that maybe, just maybe, this eye of yours is already a Manjiki Sharingan?" Akira suggested. Kakashi was speechless. Chapter 109, Orochimaru, did Uchiha Akira predict my attack again? Kakashi looked at Uchiha Akira with a strange expression, almost as if he was silently asking, "Are you taking me for a fool, or are you the fool here?" "Akira," Kakashi finally spoke, calming the odd feelings brewing inside him. He felt compelled to remind Akira, "I only have one Sharingan, and I don't have Uchiha blood." And Uchiha Akira's expression remained unchanged as he continued to gaze at Kakashi. Kakashi found himself at a loss for words. Was there really more to say after this? He couldn't help but smile wryly as he continued to explain, "Then, consider this, many Uchiha geniuses have failed to awaken the Manjiki Sharingan. I have only one transplanted eye, and I'm not even an Uchiha. There's no way my Sharingan could evolve into a Manjiki." Indeed, his Sharingan was a gift, a borrowed power. Expecting it to evolve into the Manjiki was simply impossible. This wasn't a matter of probability, it was a matter of there being no probability at all. "Let me ask you something else," Uchiha Akira said, his expression still unmoved, as if Kakashi's response had been entirely predictable. "Your Sharingan, I know, was transplanted from your teammate Obito when you were young. However, as far as I know, back then, Uchiha Obito's Sharingan was only at the 2-tomo stage, wasn't it? But look at you now, it's a 3-tomo Sharingan." Akira continued. "Don't you find that curious?" Kakashi was silent. Akira's words struck a chord, bringing up a question Kakashi himself had pondered for a long time. By all logic, someone merely borrowing a Sharingan shouldn't be able to make it evolve. Yet, back then, Obito's Sharingan had indeed been at the 2-tomo stage. So how had it advanced to 3-tomo now? This mystery had perplexed Kakashi for years, but since he couldn't figure it out, he had simply stopped thinking about it. Now, with Uchiha Akira bringing it up again, Kakashi found himself at a loss for how to respond. Could it be that he wasn't truly a Hotake by blood? Could he have Uchiha lineage hidden somewhere in his ancestry? Kakashi shook his head, dismissing the absurd thought. His father was Sakumo Hotake, his mother wasn't from the Uchiha clan, there was no way he had Uchiha blood. But still, could his mother have some distant Uchiha heritage? This wild idea took root in his mind, growing uncontrollably like a stubborn weed. "What are you thinking about?" Akira asked, noting the shift in Kakashi's expression. He didn't need to be a mind reader to see that Kakashi's thoughts had taken a bizarre turn. "Akira, what do you think is the cause of my Sharingan's evolution?" Kakashi asked, snapping back to reality and setting aside the chaotic thoughts in his head. He looked at Akira with a questioning gaze, curious to hear a different perspective. "Like I said before, have you considered the possibility that your Sharingan is already a Manjiki?" Akira reiterated his earlier point. "That's impossible." Kakashi quickly rejected the idea. How could that be? Obito had been his teammate, and before his death, he had entrusted his Sharingan to Kakashi. But now, Akira was suggesting that this Sharingan had been a Manjiki all along? How could that be true? "Nothing is impossible," Akira replied calmly. "In the early days, when your overall strength was only at the Chunin level, your Sharingan was only able to manifest as a 2-tomo. Now that you're at the Jainin level, it's presenting itself as a 3-tomo. Keep training," Kakashi. When your chakra levels increase and your overall strength reaches cage level, I believe your Sharingan will awaken into its Manjiki form, Akira said, planting the seed of thought before leaving Kakashi to ponder his words. In Akira's view, the factor limiting Kakashi's Sharingan was his chakra reserves. The eye was likely already a Manjiki, but in the original timeline, it hadn't awakened until the events of Shippuden, when Naruto was 15. By that time, Kakashi's chakra had likely reached a cage level threshold, enabling him to use the Manjiki's powers. In some ways, Akira was envious of Kakashi. For him, unlocking the Manjiki was simply a matter of increasing his chakra reserves. Akira, on the other hand, had reached cage level but still didn't know if he could awaken the Manjiki. Although Akira believed that with the help of the life simulator, his power would eventually reach unparalleled heights and that the Manjiki would merely be an enhancement along the way, being an Uchiha without the Manjiki still felt like something was missing. Kakashi remained where he was, dumbfounded. Initially, he had speculated that he might have some Uchiha ancestry, which could explain the evolution of his Sharingan from 2 tomo to 3 tomo. This seemed like the only plausible explanation. However, Akira had introduced a new perspective, suggesting that the eye itself had evolved, not because of Kakashi but due to its inherent power. Perhaps the eye had always been a Manjiki, and Kakashi's limited chakra had merely restricted its abilities. Akira's theory, while more outlandish than mine, seems to make sense, Kakashi thought. I'll know for sure if I work on increasing my chakra reserves. If I do reach cage level chakra and the Sharingan evolves into a Manjiki, then Akira's theory will be proven correct. But if Obito had a 2 tomo Sharingan when he died, how could this eye be a Manjiki? Kakashi pondered, his mind now filled with even more questions than before. Meanwhile, Akira returned to his resting place, reflecting on the situation. Obito was indeed someone Madara Uchiha chose for a reason. His potential is incredible, Akira mused. More accurately, it wasn't about potential, it was about the intensity of emotions. After all, the evolution of the Sharingan was more about emotional depth than innate talent. The stronger the emotions, the greater the emotional trauma, and the faster the Sharingan evolved. Other Uchiha members typically progressed from 1 tomo to 2 tomo, then 3 tomo, and eventually to the Manjiki. But Obito? He had skipped the 1 tomo stage entirely, starting directly with 2 tomo. Later, he had jumped straight from 2 tomo to Manjiki. Elsewhere, Naruto was training hard on his Raise-Nan, determined to push himself. The battle against the Tsunagakure ninjas had been a harsh wake-up call. Despite Akira and the others not blaming him, Naruto couldn't shake his guilt. The reality of Jonin-level combat had hit him hard. For the first time, Naruto truly understood how close he had come to death. But seeing Akira, who was the same age as him, wield such overwhelming power while he could only cower in fear, made Naruto question himself. His earlier declaration that he would compete for the Hokage position with Akira now seemed laughable. But giving up? That wasn't him. No, the next time he faced battle, he wouldn't freeze up. Even if it meant risking his life, he wouldn't allow himself to become a burden again. Never. Meanwhile, 100 miles away in a canyon, 2 figures clad in black cloaks adorned with red clouds were resting under the cover of night. They were none other than Orochimaru and Sasori, who remained hidden within Hirako. Hat, this is our first mission together, isn't it? I must say, it's been quite enjoyable, Orochimaru said, his voice carrying a magnetic quality as he addressed Sasori. Despite their generally quiet natures, the two scientists had found common ground, making for an unexpectedly pleasant conversation. I feel the same way. Many of your theories have been quite enlightening, especially your insights on the use of poisons, Sasori replied, nodding in agreement. If it had been anyone else exchanging compliments, it might have seemed like mere flattery. But between Orochimaru and Sasori, their mutual admiration was genuine, a recognition of each other's abilities. Unfortunately, we have a mission to complete. Otherwise, I would have invited you to visit my laboratory, Orochimaru said with a smile. I'd be honored. We can do that once the mission is over, Sasori responded. After a brief pause, Sasori continued, the entire shinobi world is abuzz with talk of Uchiha Akira being the next Madara Uchiha. Is he really that powerful? Sasori knew that Orochimaru had encountered Akira during a previous mission, one that had ended in failure. Naturally, he wanted to hear Orochimaru's assessment of Akira. Yes, he's incredibly powerful. To be honest, I'm not entirely confident that we'll succeed in this mission, Orochimaru admitted after a moment of thought. Orochimaru had been in Konoha during the Uchiha coup and had witnessed Akira's strength firsthand when he had opened the 8 gates to retake the Uchiha compound, forcing Orochimaru to retreat in shock. Adding to that, Akira's ability to foresee the future made Orochimaru suspect that Akira might already know about their impending attack. The more Orochimaru thought about it, the more he doubted their chances of completing the mission for the Akatsuki organization successfully. Chapter 110, Sasori, Is there a mole among us? The Land of Wind is primarily a barren desert, making water sources extremely scarce. After severely wounding the elite vanguard unit of the Land of Wind, Uchiha Akira's team left signals along the border before heading toward the border of the Land of Earth. With thousands of Konoha ninja converging in this direction, they would understand what had transpired once they saw the signals left behind. 3 days later, Uchiha Akira and his group arrived at a lakeside. The borderlands were mostly arid and desolate, so discovering a lake was a welcome sight. Seeing that it was already late in the day, they decided to set up camp by the lake and replenish their water supply. In the leaves of a small tree near the lake, a tiny insect lay still. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary bug, barely noticeable. However, upon closer inspection, it became evident that this insect wasn't a real creature, it was a puppet. The puppet was discreetly observing Uchiha Akira and his group from a distance. After settling down, Hayashi Hyuga activated his Byakugan, carefully scanning the surrounding area. Finding nothing out of the ordinary, everyone felt much more at ease. With the Byakugan in play, it was like having a wide-range surveillance system in place at all times. Since Hayashi didn't detect anything unusual, the group naturally felt reassured. Alright, this poison may take some time to kick in, but its biggest advantage is that it's hard to detect. Just wait half an hour, and their entire nervous systems will be paralyzed and in disarray, said Sasori, observing Uchiha Akira's group through the puppet insect, which had evaded the detection of the Byakugan. Impressive. Controlling a puppet insect from 10 kilometers away. When it comes to puppet masters, the shinobi world has never seen anyone more skilled than you, Orochimaru commented, genuinely impressed. Controlling a puppet insect from such a distance, even eluding the Byakugan's sight, was indeed remarkable. The members of the Akatsuki organization were truly formidable in their respective fields. Sasori remained expressionless at Orochimaru's praise. This was not surprising, considering that Sasori himself had become a puppet, having transformed his own body into a mechanical construct, leaving him devoid of much emotional expression. The two then began discussing their battle strategy. The primary target of this mission was Uchiha Akira. However, 2 days earlier, Zetsu had appeared, informing them that the Nine Tails Jinchuriki was also part of the team, a 2-for-1 deal. With this new information, they decided that poisoning the lake would be the most effective way to handle both targets. Given the scarcity of water sources within a 100-mile radius, they knew the group wouldn't be able to resist using the lake. As they watched through the puppet insect, they saw Akira's team indeed using the lake water, which put Orochimaru and Sasori at ease. After waiting for about half an hour, Orochimaru and Sasori made their move, appearing openly before Akira and his group. Orochimaru. The appearance of Orochimaru startled the Konoha ninjas, their faces turning grim. Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sunin and an S-rank rogue ninja from Konoha, was well known for his terrifying abilities. Whether it was Kakashi, Might Guy, or the members of the Inoshikacho trio, they all knew how dangerous Orochimaru was. Even though Akira had warned them earlier, seeing Orochimaru in the flesh was still shocking. And the one beside him must be Sasori of the Red Sand, right? Narashikaku thought to himself, noticing the half-crouched figure of Hirako, Sasori's puppet. Everyone, our objectives here are simple. First, we want Uchiha Akira dead. Second, we're taking the Nine Tails Jinchuriki with us, Orochimaru stated with a slightly hoarse voice, a smile playing on his lips as he made his intentions clear. Kill me? Are you sure you can do that? Uchiha Akira asked, his gaze fixed on Orochimaru. The last time Orochimaru had attempted an attack, they had reached an agreement. But this time, it was clear that Orochimaru was determined to kill him. This made Akira internally sigh. Any verbal agreement they had was now null and void, disappearing like smoke in the wind. Have you not noticed the changes in your bodies? Orochimaru asked with a smirk. You've been poisoned. Soon, your entire nervous systems will be paralyzed, leaving you with no strength to resist. Hearing this, Kakashi and the others quickly checked their bodies. Oh no, it's true. My legs are going numb. Kakashi exclaimed, feeling the creeping effects of the poison. Hidden shadow snake hands. Orochimaru's eyes gleamed with cold intent as he raised his hand, sending a swarm of snakes toward Naruto, aiming to capture the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. At the same time, Sasori's puppet Hirako launched several poisoned needles straight at Akira. However, as the needles seemed to pierce through Akira, they passed right through him as if he were a ghost, leaving Sasori startled. Suddenly, Sasori felt a tremendous force hit him, akin to being in a car that had just been rammed by a large truck. Hirako was sent flying, with a large chunk of its once sturdy shell shattered. When did he? Sasori thought, rolling several times on the ground before coming to a stop. He saw Akira standing where he had just been and was too stunned to even feel the loss of his damaged puppet. Attack! At that moment, Kakashi and the others sprang into action. Their aggressive stance showed no signs of being affected by the poison. Their coordinated assault forced Orochimaru back several dozen meters, landing him beside Sasori. "You're not poisoned?" Orochimaru asked, his eyes narrowing as he glared at Akira and his team. "That's right. We anticipated your plan to use poison, so we avoided the lake water," Naruto said proudly, his voice loud as he grinned at Orochimaru's surprised expression. "I knew it." Although it was Naruto who boasted, Orochimaru's gaze drifted to Akira. He sighed internally once again. Akira had predicted his moves. It was the same unsettling feeling he had the last time he tried to attack. Orochimaru glanced at Sasori's Hirako, which had been damaged by Akira's forceful strike, and silently praised himself for focusing on Naruto first, leaving Akira to Sasori. His decision had been the right one after all. "So, you knew we would use poison? Does that mean you also knew we were coming?" Sasori asked, his voice low and filled with suspicion. Had they known about the attack even before it happened? Had they anticipated the poison trap? Could it be that someone in the Akatsuki was feeding them information? Or worse, was Orochimaru himself the mole? After all, the plan to use poison had been concocted by both Sasori and Orochimaru. And considering Orochimaru's previous failure, could it be that he had intentionally held back? The more Sasori thought about it, the more he suspected Orochimaru might be the mole. "Don't look at me like that. Uchiha Akira's most terrifying ability is his foresight. Now you understand why I failed last time, right?" Orochimaru said, exasperated by Sasori's accusing glare. "A foresight ability? Uchiha Akira has such a power." Sasori's heart skipped a beat. Although it sounded unbelievable, the shinobi world was full of bizarre and extraordinary abilities. Considering the circumstances, it seemed more likely that Akira had such an ability than the idea of an internal traitor. "Humph, you two failed to take us down, and now it's our turn to strike." Naruto, ever the brave soul, didn't hesitate. Seeing Orochimaru and Sasori falter, he felt they were no more dangerous than the Tsunagaku Rajanin they had fought earlier. With that, he formed a hand seal. In a series of loud pops, Naruto summoned dozens of shadow clones, each one charging at Orochimaru and Sasori with a fierce battle cry. After his disappointing performance against the Tsunagaku ninjas, Naruto was determined to redeem himself this time. "Naruto, wait!" Akira called out, his expression changing as he watched Naruto charge toward the two S-rank shinobi. While Naruto's courage was commendable, he was clearly underestimating the difference in power between them. Still, Naruto's bold move spurred Kakashi and the others into action, suppressing their fear of Orochimaru and launching their attacks. Shuriken, Shuriken, Shuriken! Hirako's mechanisms whirred as it unleashed a barrage of projectiles, like a storm of needles, swiftly dispelling Naruto's shadow clones. Following that, Sasori pulled out a scroll. With a burst of chakra, he summoned the third Kazekage puppet from within the scroll. Now, standing before them were three cage-level threats: Orochimaru, Sasori, and the puppet of the third Kazekage. Chapter 111, Using Kota Amatsukami to subdue Orochimaru? Summoning Jutsu. As Sasori summoned the puppet of the third Kazekage, Orochimaru bit his finger, quickly forming hand signs before slamming his palm onto the ground. The inky black runes of the summoning circle spread out like an umbrella. Moments later, with a puff of white smoke, a massive snake appeared before everyone. "Orochimaru, have you prepared the sacrifices?" The enormous snake, known as Manda, spoke with little respect for Orochimaru, despite being his summoned beast. "I'll prepare them once we return," Orochimaru replied. Previously, when Orochimaru had failed in his attempt to assassinate Uchiha Akira, he could attribute the failure to fighting alone. But now, with Sasori present, Orochimaru knew he couldn't afford to hold back. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain himself when they returned. Moreover, Orochimaru had witnessed Uchiha Akira's power during the Uchiha clan massacre. Even with Sasori's help and all his trump cards revealed, Orochimaru wasn't sure they could defeat Akira today. Of course, if Akira did die here, it would mean that he was only this strong after all. Originally, Orochimaru's top target for body possession was Itachi, with Akira as his second choice. But after seeing Akira's power during the Uchiha massacre, Orochimaru no longer dared to covet his body. The sight of Orochimaru summoning such a powerful creature, coupled with Sasori's control of the third Kazekage puppet, made the Konoha ninjas' faces turn grim. Summoned beasts of this caliber could significantly amplify a shinobi's strength. Orochimaru's summon, from Rika Cave, was one of the most formidable in the ninja world. The battle continued to escalate. The Inoshika Ch trio worked seamlessly together, while Might Guy and Uchiha Akira opened the sixth gate, displaying incredible power. However, neither of them opened the seventh gate. Why? Because opening the seventh gate would mean losing their combat capability for a long time afterward. With the battles against Iwagakure and Kumagakure still ahead, neither Akira nor Guy would open the seventh gate unless absolutely necessary. In a battle against cage-level opponents, opening the seventh gate wasn't something that could be easily done or undone. Due to his fractured bones, Kakashi could only fight at about 40 to 50% of his usual strength, focusing on Sasori's puppet army. As for Orochimaru, Sasori, the third Kazekage, or Manda, Kakashi couldn't handle any of them. Hayashi Hyuga found himself in a similarly difficult situation. While Gentle Fist had some long-range techniques like 8 trigrams vacuum palm, it wasn't effective against cage-level opponents. His specialty, chakra point strikes, was useless against puppets. As a top-tier jonin, Hayashi Hyuga's contribution in this battle was limited. Even if he successfully landed a chakra point strike on Orochimaru or Sasori, it would be ineffective. Orochimaru's body had been modified, and Sasori was essentially a puppet himself. However, the Inoshika Ch trio's teamwork yielded decent results, with the core output coming from Might Guy and Uchiha Akira. Both fighting with the sixth gate open, Akira, who was already a cage-level shinobi in his base form, outshone even Guy in this battle. Each punch from Akira sent Manda reeling, the force behind his strikes rivaling Tsunade's monstrous strength. Meanwhile, Naruto's performance was particularly eye-catching. Why? Because of his multi-shadow clone jutsu. He continuously sent dozens of clones into the fray. Did they get destroyed? No problem, Naruto just made more hundreds of them, charging in again and again. Sasori grew increasingly frustrated, unleashing another volley of projectiles from Hirako, wiping out most of the clones. You brat! Do you have any other tricks? These shadow clones are useless, no matter how many you create. Sasori shouted, his voice tinged with exasperation. But Naruto, gritting his teeth, simply created more clones, sending hundreds more to attack. Sasori was on the verge of tears. While the clones weren't a significant threat, his puppet's mechanisms weren't limitless. He had nearly exhausted his supply of projectiles. And Naruto? That kid was only 7, yet his chakra seemed endless. Even Kakashi, watching Naruto out of the corner of his eye, was about to cry, not out of frustration like Sasori, but out of envy. Naruto's seemingly limitless chakra was everything Kakashi lacked. If this continues, the battle will end in a stalemate, just like the last time, Akira thought as he continued to pummel Manda, driving the giant snake back with every blow. He quickly surveyed the battlefield, pondering his next move. What had the life simulation predicted? They would defeat the Tsunagakure forces with minor injuries, but the fight with Orochimaru and Sasori would leave both sides severely wounded. Orochimaru and Sasori could retreat and recover at the Akatsuki base, but Akira couldn't afford to be severely injured with the Land of Earth and the Land of Lightning still ahead. Plus, Oniki, the third Tsuchikage, would appear on the battlefield and ambush him with dust release. This battle needed to end quickly and decisively. But how? Should he open the seventh gate? Doing so would give him the power to crush Orochimaru and Sasori, but the aftermath would leave him vulnerable. The life simulation's restorative effect was meant for facing the Tsuchikage at the border of the Land of Earth or even during the inevitable clash with the forces of the Land of Lightning. Maybe I should use Kota Amatsukami, Akira thought, finally arriving at a decision after weighing his options. With his current cage-level strength, he could potentially use Kota Amatsukami to control a cage-level opponent. But who? Using it on Obito, who could phase through attacks, might not work. Nagato, with his Rinnegan, would likely resist it too. So, why not use it on Orochimaru? Having a cage-level shinobi and one of the top scientists in the ninja world on his side would be invaluable. With his mind made up, Akira delivered another powerful punch to Manda, sending the giant snake retreating once more. But instead of pressing the attack, he used the recoil to flip backward, creating some distance. With a puff of smoke, a pitch-black crow appeared on Akira's shoulder. Its left eye bore the distinct four-pronged Manjiki Sharingan. What's that? Orochimaru's eyes widened as he saw the crow and the Manjiki Sharingan on Akira's shoulder, his instincts screaming that something was very wrong. Even during the Uchiha clan massacre, Orochimaru had observed from the shadows. He knew about Shisui's Manjiki Sharingan, at least superficially. Seeing Akira's focus shift onto him, Orochimaru felt a chill run down his spine. Without hesitation, Orochimaru's body began to sink into the ground as if it were water, disappearing from the battlefield. As Orochimaru vanished, Manda also let out an enraged hiss before dissipating into white smoke, returning to the summoning realm. Orochimaru fled. Sasori's heart sank as he realized the situation. They had been at a disadvantage already, and now with Orochimaru gone, it was clear their mission had failed. Glancing once more at Akira, particularly at the crow perched on his shoulder, Sasori recognized the Manjiki Sharingan. The Manjiki Sharingan, hey! Sasori muttered. He had recognized the unique, non-tomo pattern as the Manjiki Sharingan. It seemed that the moment this powerful eye appeared, Orochimaru had fled without a second thought. There was no point in lingering. With Orochimaru gone and alone against such formidable opponents, Sasori knew he couldn't complete the mission. As Akira and the others began their assault, Sasori activated all his defenses. A series of powerful explosions followed as the Konoha team launched their attacks, completely overwhelming Hiriko. Even Naruto joined in, unleashing his Raise-Nan. When the dust finally settled, Hiriko lay in pieces, shattered into dozens of fragments. But Sasori himself was nowhere to be seen. Looks like he managed to escape, Akira remarked, shaking his head as he surveyed the battlefield. Orochimaru had fled as soon as he saw Shisui's Manjiki Sharingan, leaving Akira to conclude that Orochimaru must have known about Kota Amatsukami's power. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fled so decisively. Although the outcome was unexpected, Akira was satisfied. He hadn't even needed to use Kota Amatsukami, yet it had been enough to scare Orochimaru away, preventing the battle from ending in mutual destruction as predicted by the life simulation. It's a shame, though. If I had been able to subdue Orochimaru, Konoha would have gained not only a cage-level shinobi but also a top-tier scientist, Akira mused. Whether it's forbidden jutsu, human experiments, or scientific advancements, Orochimaru would have been invaluable. Perhaps it was the allure of what he couldn't have, but the more Akira thought about it, the more he regretted not using Kota Amatsukami to subdue Orochimaru. Chapter 112, Life Simulation. Isn't it like getting the script in advance? After Orochimaru's departure, Sasori also managed to escape, leaving behind his puppet armor, Hiriko. Uchiha Akira and his team had no intention of pursuing them. When a cage-level shinobi truly wants to flee, it's nearly impossible for the likes of Akira and his team to stop them. As the enemies retreated, everyone from Konoha finally let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, Uchiha Akira and Might Guy deactivated their 8 gates. An overwhelming sense of exhaustion hit them, as if their bodies had been completely drained. Might Guy was in better condition, given his naturally strong physique. Although tired, it was akin to a regular person running a few miles panting, but not severely weakened. However, Akira, being only 7 years old, was nearly collapsing, panting heavily like a dog on its last legs. Akira, that crow with the Manjiki Sharingan, what was that about? After taking a moment to rest and relax, Kakashi turned to Akira with curiosity. Everyone had seen Orochimaru flee the moment that crow appeared. It was clear that the crow's Manjiki Sharingan had frightened him away. This left Kakashi and the others intrigued. Though Manjiki Sharingan was powerful, it was hard to believe it could scare off someone like Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sunin. Orochimaru wasn't afraid of the Manjiki Sharingan itself, he was afraid of the specific dojutsu that comes with it, Akira explained without hiding anything. The Manjiki Sharingan, as its name suggests, manifests differently for each user. Every Manjiki has a unique pattern and a unique set of abilities. The Manjiki you saw belonged to Shisui-sensei. Orochimaru likely knew about the specific dojutsu tied to it, which is why he fled immediately. Akira was straightforward in his explanation, revealing that Orochimaru was scared off by the Mangekyou's special ability. However, he didn't elaborate on what that specific dojutsu was, and the others didn't press him for details. Nevertheless, everyone couldn't help but marvel. The power of the Uchiha was indeed terrifying, like a lottery box where opening a Mangekyou Sharingan could grant one such overwhelming power, enough to send even Orochimaru running. "Alright, is everyone doing okay?" Akira asked, shifting the topic away from the Mangekyou Sharingan. "We're good. Our chakra reserves are pretty depleted, but the injuries aren't too serious," came the collective responses from the group. "Yeah, I'm fine." Naruto chimed in, still full of energy, making everyone around him, including Kakashi, look at him with strange expressions. This was Naruto Uzumaki? His chakra reserves were practically bottomless, thanks to his Uzumaki lineage. Watching him use the multi-shadow clone jutsu repeatedly had left everyone in awe. What was even more impressive was that Naruto had been using his own chakra, not the Nine Tails chakra. This meant that even without the aid of a tailed beast, Naruto's chakra reserves were already comparable to that of a Jinchuriki. Now, it was clear to everyone why Akira had brought Naruto along, despite his young age. With such an enormous chakra reserve, it wouldn't take much training to make Naruto incredibly powerful. It was like a child in a martial arts world being born with 100 years worth of inner energy. Just a little training could turn him into a top-tier martial artist. "Alright, everyone, get some rest. Our next destination is the land of Earth," Akira said. "From what I know, the third Tsuchikage, Oniki, is incredibly stubborn. Moreover, Iwagakure is stronger than Tsunagakure, so we might be in for a tough battle. In fact..." Akira paused, his gaze sweeping over everyone before he continued, "I suspect that the third Tsuchikage might personally appear on the battlefield." Boom! Akira's words landed like a thunderclap, shocking everyone. What? The third Tsuchikage might appear on the battlefield? That seemed unlikely. Even though other villages were testing Konoha's defenses, they were still in the early stages of probing. Would the Tsuchikage really appear on the battlefield so soon? It was like starting a game by playing a pair of trump cards. "Akira, that doesn't seem very likely, does it?" Kakashi questioned, shaking his head at the suggestion. "No, I actually think Akira has a point. It's not just possible, it's quite likely," Narashikaku interjected before Akira could respond, agreeing with his assessment. "Oh? Shikaku, what are your thoughts?" Akim Ichichisa asked, curious to hear the reasoning of Konoha's renowned strategist. The others, including Hayashi Hyuga, also turned their attention to Shikaku, eager to hear his analysis. "First, we all know that Akira is now hailed as the greatest genius of the ninja world, a 7-year-old with the power to kill a Kage. If he continues to grow, people say he could reach the heights of the legendary Uchiha Madara. The third Tsuchikage, being of advanced age, probably remembers Madara. Now, here's the issue, if the third Tsuchikage were to die, who in Iwagakure could stand against Akira once he's fully grown? Oniki's dust release is feared across the ninja world, but he's not getting any younger. If something happens to him, who would be able to bear the weight of facing a grown Akira?" Shikaku explained. His analysis made everyone realize the potential implications. If this were merely a matter of inter-village skirmishes, the possibility of the Tsuchikage entering the battlefield might be low. But if it concerned the future of Iwagakure, it made perfect sense. Though Akira was powerful, everyone knew that his strength that night was largely due to the 8 Gates forbidden jutsu. If there was even a slight chance of eliminating him now, to prevent Iwagakure from being oppressed like it was during the era of Madara and Hashirama, the Tsuchikage might take action before it's too late. Moreover, the recent encounter with Tsunagakure left 6 elite Genin dead, and word would soon spread that Akira had appeared on the front lines. If Iwagakure feared what might come, the Tsuchikage might indeed make a move. Alright, no need to get too pessimistic. Let's focus on healing up first. We're in no rush to clash with Iwagakure. Once everyone's fully recovered, we can plan our next steps, Akira reassured the group, noticing the heavy atmosphere. Why was he so calm? Because, according to the life simulation, Jiraiya would arrive soon and join forces with them. With Jiraiya, an experienced and powerful shinobi, on their side, the situation would be different. While all 3 Sunin were strong, Akira believed Jiraiya was the most destructive in combat. After all, his Sage Mode was no joke. Perhaps Jiraiya was the only one in the current ninja world who had truly mastered Sage Mode. Moreover, the life simulation had shown that the friction with Iwagakure would last for about a month before the Tsuchikage appeared, and even then, it would be in the form of a surprise attack. Akira just needed to be on guard for that eventual ambush. After having the life simulator for over a year and using it dozens of times, Akira had grown to understand its full potential. Beyond strengthening his abilities and providing full recovery in critical moments, the simulator's greatest advantage was allowing him to get the script in advance. For example, when returning to Konoha from Kumagakure, a simulation revealed Orochimaru's impending attack. Or when he was still in Konoha, a simulation showed that Orochimaru would use poison in his assault. By running another simulation, he learned that the Tsuchikage would appear on the battlefield and ambush him. This ability to see the future, to predict upcoming events, was one of the life simulator's most valuable features. In a way, it was akin to having the power to foresee the future. While Akira was contemplating all this, the others were still processing the possibility of facing the Tsuchikage. The realization that they might have to battle one of the most powerful Kage left everyone feeling tense and apprehensive. Days passed quickly. With a few days of rest, most of the group's injuries had healed, and Kakashi's fractured bones were also improving. While an ordinary person might take 100 days to recover from such injuries, ninjas with access to medical jutsu naturally healed much faster. As for Naruto, he remained fully immersed in his training, creating dozens of shadow clones to practice the Raise Nan. Naruto felt that the Raise Nan was still too small. He needed to find a way to make it bigger. Just as he was deep in thought, Jiraiya was drawing closer to joining Akira and his team. Chapter 113, Jiraiya is stunned. Jiraiya was filled with anger as he made his way toward the border. His anger was directed at the current Hokage and the Uchiha clan. Due to his close relationship with the third Hokage, Jiraiya had never harbored any fondness for the Uchiha. But when he learned that 7-year-old Naruto Uzumaki had been sent to the battlefield, his anger intensified. Sending a 7-year-old child to the battlefield? That's practically sending him to die. Even during the first, second, and third Great Ninja Wars, it was extremely rare for children of that age to be sent to the front lines, let alone in a situation where the war hadn't fully broken out yet. With this rage simmering within him, Jiraiya sped toward the border. As a Kage-level shinobi, he moved incredibly fast. He first reached the border of the Land of Wind, where he noticed Uchiha Akira's signal, indicating they had already encountered Tsunagakure's forces and were now heading toward the Land of Earth. After adjusting his direction, Jiraiya began heading toward the Land of Earth, silently praying that Naruto, the son of Minato Namikaze, would be safe. If he found Naruto, Jiraiya planned to take him away and personally train him for a few years. Though Jiraiya had often been criticized by the third Hokage, Tsunade, and even Orochimaru for being a fool, he was confident in his teaching abilities. After all, hadn't Minato Namikaze, his student, become the legendary Yellow Flash of the ninja world? He also wondered how Nagato, Konan, and Yahiko were doing, but he believed they must have found their own place in the ninja world by now. Shaking off these thoughts, Jiraiya soon came to a halt as he spotted a figure in the distance, a child around 7 or 8 years old, with striking blonde hair and clothing adorned with a spiral pattern. It wasn't just the blonde hair that caught Jiraiya's attention, it was the 10 or so shadow clones surrounding the child. Shadow clone jutsu was a signature technique of the Leaf Village, created by the second Hokage. A child using shadow clone jutsu with blonde hair. Jiraiya's heart skipped a beat. Could this be Naruto Uzumaki? Was Naruto really this talented? At just 7 years old, he could create over 10 shadow clones? Jiraiya had originally thought that with his guidance, Naruto could someday hold his own in the ninja world. But now, Jiraiya realized he had underestimated Naruto's potential. This child's talent seemed on par with Minato's. If he could train another student as powerful as Minato, it would indeed be a remarkable achievement. A father and son, both trained by him, becoming legends in the ninja world, what a story that would be. But the surprises didn't end there. Just as Jiraiya was about to approach Naruto, he noticed that the shadow clones had started training. The technique they were practicing was none other than the Raise Nan. No way! Not only can he create 10 shadow clones, but he's also learned the Raise Nan. Jiraiya was left dumbfounded. A 7-year-old child with the ability to create multiple shadow clones, all of whom could use the Raise Nan? That meant Naruto's chakra reserves were already at the level of a Genin. A 7-year-old with Genin level chakra? So, he's not just Minato's son but also Kushina's, inheriting both his father's ninjutsu talent and his mother's Uzumaki vitality. Jiraiya thought, his shock slowly giving way to joy. The Raise Nan was an A-rank jutsu that consumed a lot of chakra. Yet Naruto could create multiple clones, each capable of using the Raise Nan. This confirmed that his chakra was indeed at a Jonin level. And what was Naruto doing now? It seemed he wasn't just practicing the Raise Nan, he was trying to improve it. As someone who had mastered the Raise Nan himself, Jiraiya could tell that Naruto was working on enhancing the jutsu. A 7-year-old child trying to improve an A-rank jutsu? It was as if a child who had just learned to ride a bicycle decided to modify the bike itself. This was on a whole different level. Jiraiya continued to observe for another half-hour, deeply impressed by Naruto's talent. Finally, he stepped out from the shadows, clearing his throat to get Naruto's attention. "Who are you?" Naruto stopped his training, dispelled his shadow clones, and turned to Jiraiya with a questioning look. "Me? I'm the Toad Sage of Mount Myaboku, Jiraiya." Jiraiya struck a pose, hoping to make a good first impression. "Sage?" Naruto tilted his head, giving Jiraiya a puzzled look. Jiraiya's self-perception might have been positive, but to Naruto, he just looked a bit silly. "You were practicing the Raise Nan, right?" Jiraiya asked, seeing that Naruto was still looking at him strangely. "What? You know the Raise Nan?" Naruto exclaimed in surprise. "Of course, not only do I know it, but I can also use it," Jiraiya replied, holding out his hand and forming a Raise Nan in his palm. Jiraiya believed that demonstrating the Raise Nan would be a good way to establish his identity. However, instead of being impressed, Naruto quickly formed a hand seal, and in an instant, 100 shadow clones appeared, surrounding Jiraiya. "Wow, that's a lot of shadow clones," Jiraiya muttered, stunned by the sheer number. He had thought he had a good understanding of Naruto's capabilities, but it seemed he had underestimated him. Naruto's chakra reserves were terrifyingly vast. "You're a bad guy, stealing my Raise Nan!" Naruto shouted, his voice echoed by the 100 shadow clones around him. From Naruto's perspective, this strange man had been spying on him for who knows how long, watching him practice the Raise Nan, and now suddenly revealed that he could use the jutsu too. It only made sense to Naruto that Jiraiya had stolen his technique. "Wait a minute. I didn't steal your Raise Nan. I already knew how to use it," Jiraiya protested, finding Naruto's thought process both amusing and exasperating. As one of the legendary Sunin and the Toad Sage, did he really need to steal techniques? But Naruto was not easily convinced. Seeing that Jiraiya didn't seem to be taking him seriously, Naruto grew angry. With a shout, all 100 shadow clones lunged at Jiraiya with overwhelming force. In no time, Jiraiya had dispelled all the clones. "Kid, don't be so rash. Let's talk," Jiraiya began, trying to calm the situation. While Naruto's chakra reserves were impressive, the shadow clones themselves posed little threat. However, before Jiraiya could finish his sentence, Naruto formed another hand seal, summoning hundreds more shadow clones. This time, there were 200 or 300 of them. "You've got to be kidding me. Does he still have this much chakra?" Jiraiya's expression froze in disbelief. After a moment, Jiraiya managed to dispel the new wave of shadow clones as well, but he couldn't help but look at Naruto with a mix of curiosity and awe. Was Naruto really going to keep going? Sure enough, Naruto formed the hand seal again. This time, 500 or 600 shadow clones appeared. This kid, not only isn't he getting tired, but he's also summoning more and more clones. Even Jiraiya couldn't help but silently complain about the situation. The commotion caught the attention of Uchiha Akira and the others. Feeling the intense activity, Akira used the body flicker technique to cover the distance of 1,000 meters in an instant. "That figure. Is that Jiraiya? Why is Naruto fighting Jiraiya? And they're going all out?" Akira thought, puzzled by the scene before him. As he watched Naruto summon yet another wave of shadow clones, Akira decided it was time to step in. With a swift movement, he appeared beside Naruto, placing a hand on his shoulder to calm him down. Chapter 114, Naruto, he's also one of the Sunin? No wonder none of them are any good. "Akira, you arrived just in time. This white-haired old man was trying to steal my Raise Nan," Naruto shouted with excitement when he saw Uchiha Akira arrive. "Who stole your technique? Are you an idiot? Do you think Raise Nan is so easy to steal?" Jiraiya, already agitated, retorted angrily at Naruto, who kept insisting on the theft. "I may not be smart, but I managed to learn Raise Nan in just a few days. So, it's not surprising that you, old man, could steal it. Naruto responded, nodding as if Jiraiya's insult was just a statement of fact. Wait, you learned Raise Nan in just a few days? Jiraiya was stunned once more by Naruto's words. Yeah, Akira taught me how to train in Raise Nan, and I mastered it in a few days. And by the way, the multi-shadow clone jutsu was even easier. I learned that in just over an hour. Were you spying on me to learn that too? Naruto questioned, eyeing Jiraiya suspiciously. What? The multi-shadow clone jutsu? You learned it in just over an hour? What kind of talent does this kid have? Jiraiya was left speechless, not knowing how many times he'd been shocked by Naruto today. Of course, Jiraiya knew how to perform the multi-shadow clone jutsu, but admitting that now would mean conceding that he'd been spying, which he wasn't about to do. So, he shook his head, refusing to let Naruto know he also knew the technique. So, this kid taught Naruto the Raise Nan. At this moment, Jiraiya finally focused on Uchiha Akira. The boy wore the Uchiha clan's emblem on his clothing and a Konoha forehead protector. He looked about the same age as Naruto, around 7 or 8. So, this was Uchiha Akira? The one who had opened the 8 gates and killed the third Hokage? The one hailed as the current greatest genius in the ninja world? Alright, Naruto, you've got it wrong. This is Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin from Konoha. Akira said, giving Jiraiya a slight nod as a greeting and then addressing Naruto. Although Akira had already known about Jiraiya's arrival through the life simulator, he hadn't expected the situation to unfold with such a misunderstanding between Jiraiya and Naruto. Kid, now that you know who I am, you should apologize. I'm one of the Sannin, after all. Jiraiya, relieved that Akira had cleared up his identity, looked at Naruto expectantly, waiting for an apology. One of the Sannin? So he's just like that Orochimaru, one of the 3 Sannin? Naruto asked, still skeptical. That's right, Akira confirmed with a nod. Hearing this, Jiraiya's expression grew even more self-assured. It seemed that Naruto did understand the significance of the Sannin title. Surely, now he would apologize. However, the next words out of Naruto's mouth caught Jiraiya completely off guard. Figures, none of the Sannin are any good. Naruto shot Jiraiya a disdainful glance, showing no intention of apologizing. Instead, he continued to criticize the Sannin. What? Jiraiya froze, as if struck by lightning. Naruto's words echoed in his mind, none of the Sannin are any good. After standing there dumbfounded for a while, Jiraiya finally snapped out of it and looked at Naruto with frustration. Uchiha kid, is this some lie your clan spread to tarnish the Sannin's reputation? After the Uchiha clan's successful coup, they had publicly exposed the so-called 7 deadly sins of the third Hokage, causing his name to be cursed even after death. Could it be that they were also smearing the reputation of the Sannin? Isn't it true? Naruto interjected before Akira could respond, clearly irritated. Let's talk about Orochimaru, for example. Back in Konoha, he secretly captured villagers and even ninjas to perform cruel experiments. Then, just a few days ago, he tried to poison us all. Orochimaru is a complete villain, right? And now, here's this old man who tried to steal my jutsu. So yeah, all the Sannin are no good. Am I wrong? Jiraiya was left speechless by Naruto's impassioned rant. It wasn't that the Uchiha clan had defamed the Sannin, Naruto had simply misunderstood him because of Orochimaru's actions. Faced with Naruto's logical reasoning, Jiraiya found himself at a loss for words. Meanwhile, Akira, who had been silent until now, just observing the exchange, couldn't help but smirk. Jiraiya, the esteemed author and ninja, was no match for Naruto's sharp tongue. Even a skilled debater like Jiraiya couldn't stand up to Naruto's verbal prowess. Alright, Naruto, Jiraiya isn't like Orochimaru, Akira finally intervened, breaking the tension. Seeing Akira step in to mediate, Naruto decided to drop the subject, though it was clear he wasn't entirely convinced. With the misunderstanding cleared up, Akira led Naruto and Jiraiya back to the camp. Jiraiya-sama. When they arrived at the camp, Kakashi and the others were surprised and delighted to see Jiraiya, quickly greeting him with enthusiasm. Given the looming threat of facing the third Tsuchikage, Oniki, everyone had been feeling quite apprehensive. Seeing Jiraiya, a legendary figure, appear out of nowhere was a much-needed morale boost. Hey, Kakashi! How far are you into my book? Oh, you want me to release the next one sooner? Nice, nice, you've always been my best fan. Jiraiya grinned, exchanging greetings with everyone. Hi Ashi, it's been a while. Didn't expect to see you here in person. And Shikaku, Chse, Inoichi long time no see. And you must be Might Guy, what a spirited young man. As Jiraiya made the rounds, greeting everyone warmly, he felt a sense of satisfaction. This was how things should be, him being warmly welcomed by his comrades from Konoha. Humph, I still don't get it. Why do they respect this white-haired old man so much? Naruto muttered, turning his head away, still holding on to his initial impression that Jiraiya wasn't to be trusted. Seeing Naruto's dismissive attitude, Jiraiya's expression darkened again. It was clear that Naruto had a deep-seated bias against him, and changing that first impression wouldn't be easy. With a resigned sigh, Jiraiya sat down after exchanging pleasantries with everyone. Even though it was getting late, no one felt like sleeping now that Jiraiya had arrived. By the way, Uchiha Kid, did Naruto say you taught him Raise Nan? And he mastered it in just a few days? Jiraiya asked, looking at Akira with a curious expression once they were settled. That's right, Akira confirmed with a nod. And you also taught him the multi-shadow clone jutsu? He learned it in just over an hour. Jiraiya continued, still trying to wrap his head around it. That's right, Akira nodded again. How did you learn the Raise Nan? Jiraiya asked, his expression turning even more puzzled. The Raise Nan was a technique unique to the Namikaze lineage. Only those connected to Minato, like himself and Kakashi, should know it. So how had this Uchiha Kid learned it? Raise Nan? Who said I know it? I don't, Akira replied straightforwardly, shaking his head. Hey? You don't know it? But didn't you teach Naruto? Jiraiya was completely taken aback by Akira's response, staring at him in bewilderment. Yes, I taught him, but that doesn't mean I have to know how to perform it myself, Akira said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Teaching someone Raise Nan without knowing how to use it himself? And Naruto mastered it in just a few days? Jiraiya was left feeling utterly confused. Had the ninja world progressed so much that he now felt out of touch with reality? Chapter 115, Jiraiya's amazement. The Uchiha clan is about to produce a remarkable figure. Though Uchiha Akira managed to teach Naruto the Raise Nan without even knowing how to perform it himself, Jiraiya found himself questioning his once unshakable confidence in his teaching abilities. However, as the events unfolded, Jiraiya realized he had misunderstood the Uchiha. Initially, Jiraiya had assumed that bringing a 7-year-old Naruto to the battlefield was akin to sending him to die, perhaps even as a way to eliminate him. But now, seeing Kakashi on the team reassured Jiraiya that Naruto wasn't just cannon fodder. After all, Kakashi would never allow that. As Jiraiya observed, he realized that not only had Akira taught Naruto the multi-shadow clone jutsu, but he had also taught him the Raise Nan. Coupled with Naruto's incredible talent and vast chakra reserves, it became clear to Jiraiya that Akira was nurturing Naruto as a prodigy, preparing him for greatness even at the young age of 7. For the first time, Jiraiya looked at Akira and realized that not all Uchiha were detestable. Akira was already hailed as the greatest genius in the ninja world, with many claiming that given 10 more years, he could reach the heights of Uchiha Madara. Yet, despite knowing Naruto's potential, Akira still chose to invest in him. Akira didn't fear that Naruto might one day surpass him. This level of magnanimity showed that Akira wasn't thinking solely of his clan or his own interests, he was genuinely considering what was best for the village. By the way, I heard from Naruto that you were attacked by Orochimaru. Jiraiya asked after a moment of silence, abandoning his initial plan to take Naruto away immediately. That's right, and not just by Orochimaru. We also encountered Sasori of the Red Sand, an S-rank rogue ninja from the Sand Village, Kakashi replied. But the most shocking part was discovering that the missing third Kazekage had been killed by Sasori and turned into a human puppet. The puppet even retained the Kazekage's magnet release abilities. Jiraiya was stunned. Orochimaru, Sasori, and a human puppet of the third Kazekage, such a lineup, and you still managed to defeat them. He looked at Kakashi and the others in amazement, realizing just how much they had grown in power during the years they hadn't seen each other. It wasn't entirely us. The main reason we prevailed was that Akira revealed the power of a Mangekyou Sharingan. Orochimaru seemed to recognize the Mangekyo's terrifying ability and fled in fear, Kakashi explained. Mangekyou Sharingan. I see, Jiraiya nodded, understanding the situation. He was well aware of the unique and often terrifying abilities each Mangeki possessed. The advance forces of the Land of Wind have already been defeated by you, Jiraiya mused. And the Mist Village isn't in any position to threaten the Land of Fire. Next, it's the Land of Earth and the Land of Lightning. Understanding the purpose of Akira's team, Jiraiya asked what their next move was. Yes, our next step is to head to the border of the Land of Earth to show them that Konoha isn't as weak as they think, Akira replied with a nod. And we've analyzed the situation. We believe there's a chance the third Tsuchikage, Oniki, might appear on the battlefield, Narashikaku added, joining the conversation. Oniki, that old man? It seems unlikely, Jiraiya said, skeptical that the Tsuchikage would involve himself in what was still an early-stage conflict. Shikaku then explained his reasoning to Jiraiya. In the art of war, the most unlikely moves are often the ones that occur. Considering the long-term interests of the Land of Earth, Oniki had every reason to make an appearance on the battlefield. As Jiraiya scanned the group in front of him, each one a top-tier ninja and the future of Konoha, he noticed that despite the possibility of facing Oniki, none of them showed any signs of backing down. Could he really just leave them now? Could he harden his heart and walk away? Konoha was indeed at its weakest point in history. Even though they had geniuses, it had come to the point where even 7-year-old children were being sent to the front lines. The Land of Earth. It's been a while since I last saw that old man Oniki. I wonder how many years he has left? Since I have nothing better to do, I'll join you and check out the situation, Jiraiya finally said, with an air of nonchalance. Hearing Jiraiya's words, everyone present smiled as if they had just been handed a reassurance. Konoha was currently more in need of high-level combat power than ever before, with the only cage-level fighters being the 5th Hokage, Uchiha Fugaku, and Akira. Jiraiya's return and his willingness to accompany them to the Land of Earth was a significant boost, a timely intervention. Although Jiraiya downplayed his decision, making it sound as if he was just tagging along out of boredom, everyone knew the real reason. He still cared deeply for Konoha, and that's why he was going with them. This was why, despite Orochimaru defecting from the village and becoming an S-rank rogue ninja, Jiraiya, though absent from Konoha for many years, never turned his back on the village. Is this old man really coming with us? Are we sure he's not just going to mess things up and drag us down? Naruto muttered quietly. Though his voice was low, everyone present, being elite ninjas, heard it clearly. Shikaku and the others struggled to suppress their laughter, trying hard to keep straight faces. Jiraiya's face, however, darkened as he glared at Naruto. It was as if a parent had just watched their child break the TV and scribble all over the walls, a mix of frustration and exasperation. Meanwhile, Akira couldn't hold back and burst into laughter. I knew Naruto's sharp tongue was impressive, but this, even Jiraiya is no match for him. All right, Naruto, Akira said after a moment, noticing Jiraiya's increasingly sour expression. Jiraiya is a very strong ninja. If you train with him, you'll grow much stronger. With that, Akira quickly offered some words in Jiraiya's defense, hoping to smooth things over. After all, if Jiraiya got too angry and decided to challenge him, Akira wasn't entirely confident he could win against this veteran cage-level ninja, especially considering Jiraiya's sage mode. Besides, fighting Jiraiya wouldn't bring him any benefits. What? Train with him? Naruto's expression was one of pure distaste, clearly unimpressed with Jiraiya. You've already taught me the multi-shadow clone jutsu and the raise nan. I think training with you is enough. Naruto, I forgot to mention Jiraiya is not only one of the legendary Sannin but also the teacher of the 4th Hokage, Akira added, trying to change Naruto's mind. Hey? He's... Naruto's eyes widened in shock as he glanced between Jiraiya and Akira. He found it hard to believe that this untrustworthy-looking white-haired old man had been his father's mentor. Naruto turned to Kakashi and the others, seeking confirmation, and they all nodded, indicating that it was true. This revelation left Naruto feeling as if his entire worldview had been turned upside down. Feeling immensely satisfied as he watched Naruto's shocked expression, Jiraiya felt as if he had just taken a refreshing gulp of ice-cold cola on a scorching summer day. It was immensely gratifying to see Naruto, who had so deeply misunderstood him, finally realize the truth. And another thing. Akira continued after a pause, turning to Naruto. You said you wanted to compete with me for the position of Hokage, right? If you keep following my training, you'll always be in my shadow. How will you ever surpass me? So, if you want to surpass me and become the next Hokage, your best chance is to train with him, Akira finished, pointing to Jiraiya. Jiraiya couldn't help but glance at Akira in surprise. Initially, he had mixed feelings about the Uchiha clan. He wasn't particularly fond of them but didn't outright hate them either. Then, learning how dedicated Akira was to training Naruto, his opinion began to shift. He realized that not all Uchiha were to be disliked. But now, after listening to Akira's conversation with Naruto, Jiraiya found himself genuinely liking Akira. Despite Naruto's obvious dislike for him, Akira had spoken up on his behalf. Yes, this child was truly likable. Most importantly, for two 7-year-olds to set a rivalry for the Hokage position, and for Akira to have the magnanimity to suggest that Naruto train with Jiraiya, it was clear that the Uchiha clan was about to produce an extraordinary individual. Chapter 116, The Akatsuki's Shock. Uchiha Akira has such a devastating weapon? For Uchiha Akira, things were going quite well. His relationship with Sasuke was excellent. After all, Sasuke was the reincarnation of Indra. And now, Naruto was also extremely grateful to him, Naruto being the reincarnation of Ashura. With both the main protagonist and the deuteragonist firmly on his side, what could possibly go wrong? As for handing Naruto over to Jiraiya, Akira had his reasons. First, Akira simply didn't have the time or energy to teach Naruto all the foundational knowledge he needed. Second, looking at Naruto's life as a whole, what were his most crucial jutsu? The multi-shadow clone jutsu and various forms of Raise Nan. Akira had already taught Naruto these two essential jutsu. Naruto would never forget the debt he owed Akira for that. So, with those jutsu taught, Naruto owed Akira a significant favor. The basic training could be left to Jiraiya. Now, Akira saw himself in a win-win situation. If everything went perfectly, he could use the abilities granted by the life simulator to grow strong enough to punch out Kaguya and kick down Madara. But if things didn't go as planned, no worries, he could retreat and let Naruto and Sasuke handle the heavy lifting, while he cheered them on from the sidelines. Of course, if Naruto grew strong and ended up competing with Akira for the title of Hokage, Akira wasn't worried. To be honest, Akira had never really aspired to become Hokage. Positions of power like Emperor, King, or Hokage were exhausting and burdensome. Naturally, no one else knew what Akira was truly thinking. For the others present, such as Hyuga Hayashi, Kakashi, and Jiraiya, they were all deeply impressed by Akira's words. Here was someone who was genuinely nurturing Naruto, even though Naruto might one day be his rival for the position of Hokage. Akira's magnanimity was astonishing, especially for a 7-year-old. Akira's generosity wasn't just lip service, he was genuinely putting it into practice. All right, Akira, I'll follow the white-haired old man to train. We agreed starting today, we're rivals in the race to become Hokage. Naruto said, clearly moved, as he extended his fist towards Akira. Everyone else might have doubted Naruto's dream of becoming Hokage, but Akira had believed in him from the start. Seeing Naruto's determination, Akira smiled and bumped fists with him. Konoha still has a future, Jiraiya thought to himself as he watched the two boys make their pact. When he had left Konoha, he was deeply disappointed in the village, more specifically, in the third Hokage and the village's leadership. But now, seeing Akira and Naruto, Jiraiya was beginning to think that Akira's coup might not have been a bad thing after all. Konoha had decayed to its core, and though the process of purging the rot was painful, looking at these two children gave Jiraiya hope for the village's future. Much like Jiraiya, everyone in the village had their own concerns and ambitions, but ultimately, they all wanted the best for Konoha. Seeing Akira and Naruto, even Might Guy and the others felt as though they were witnessing the future of the village. Especially Akira's magnanimity. Originally, everyone in Konoha believed that Akira was destined to become the 6th Hokage. Given the state of the village, there simply wasn't anyone else who could compete with him for the title. But now, with Naruto's emerging talent and Jiraiya's guidance, Akira finally had a genuine rival for the position. And it was a rival he had trained himself. Regardless of the outcome, with Jiraiya joining the group, Konoha's team had grown to 9 members. The earlier tension stemming from the possibility of Oniki entering the battlefield had eased significantly. With an old and seasoned cage-level ninja like Jiraiya on their side, the group felt much more secure. Jiraiya's presence brought a sense of stability that was much needed. As the Konoha team continued their journey toward the border of the Land of Earth, let's turn our attention to another scene. In a dimly lit cave, the members of the Akatsuki had gathered. For the first time, Sasori was presenting himself to the Akatsuki without his Hirako puppet armor. In his true form, Sasori looked like a youthful teenager, about 15 or 16 years old. Cloaked in the Akatsuki's signature black robe with red clouds, no one could see the mechanical modifications he had made to his body, which allowed him to look completely human. "This is Sasori?" asked Juzo, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, with a puzzled expression. Wasn't Sasori supposed to have defected from the Sand Village over a decade ago? But he looks like he's only 15 or 16. Did he defect as a baby? Remarked Kakuzu, his tone equally confused. Maybe he's like the Mizukage, a natural baby face. Juzo speculated. Beside them, Itachi remained silent, adhering to his usual practice of observing more and speaking less, as if he were just a transparent bystander. "All right, enough chatter. This is indeed Sasori. The chakra signature is unmistakable," said the leader, Pain, in his commanding voice. The Rinnegan's authority was enough to quiet the rest of the group instantly. "Now, Orochimaru, care to explain why you left Sasori behind during the battle and fled alone?" Pain's gaze turned to Orochimaru, and the other members of the Akatsuki followed suit. Orochimaru had abandoned his comrade and fled. Such an act would require a very convincing explanation if he was to avoid severe repercussions. Sasori also glanced at Orochimaru, his eyes filled with a hint of anger. Although they got along well as fellow scientists, Orochimaru's sudden retreat had cost Sasori his Hiriko puppet, which he had used for many years. Orochimaru's expression didn't change as he calmly began his explanation. Uchiha Akira revealed a Mangeki Sharingan that once belonged to Uchiha Shisui. That eye possesses a fearsome technique known as Koda Amatsukami, a genjutsu that can manipulate a target's will without them even realizing it. At this, Orochimaru paused, his snake-like eyes turning toward Itachi. A wicked smile crossed his lips as he added, "Itachi, you were quite close to Shisui during your time in Konoha. I'm sure you know exactly what Koda Amatsukami is capable of. Why don't you explain it to everyone?" Following Orochimaru's suggestion, the entire Akatsuki turned their attention to Itachi. "A Mangeki Sharingan? A genjutsu called Koda Amatsukami? Could it really be so terrifying that Orochimaru fled without a second thought?" Itachi, maintaining his calm exterior, sighed inwardly. It seemed that Orochimaru had a thorough understanding of Koda Amatsukami, leaving Itachi with no choice but to explain. "Koda Amatsukami is the ultimate genjutsu housed within Shisui's Mangeki Sharingan," Itachi began, his voice steady. "Its power lies in its ability to manipulate the target's will, altering their mental state without them even being aware of it." As Itachi's words sank in, the entire cave fell into a stunned silence. The members of Akatsuki, who had initially thought it was just another genjutsu, now understood why Orochimaru had been so terrified. The idea of a technique that could control a person's mind without them even realizing it sent chills down their spines. How could anyone defend against something they can't even detect? The ability to alter someone's will at will. "That's truly terrifying," Kisame Hoshigaki muttered, his usual nonchalant demeanor replaced by a rare seriousness. No wonder Orochimaru had fled the moment he saw that Mangeki Sharingan. Who wouldn't, when faced with such a threat? The Akatsuki members now fully grasped Orochimaru's decision to run. If Koda Amatsukami is that powerful, does this mean that if we ever encounter Uchiha Akira, we should just run? With such a technique, he could theoretically make everyone in the ninja world loyal to him, Juzo speculated, voicing the unease that had settled over the group. Koda Amatsukami has a significant cooldown period. It takes a very long time before it can be used again, Itachi clarified, though he deliberately withheld the exact cooldown time. That's a relief. The Akatsuki members collectively exhaled, feeling slightly less apprehensive. If the ability could be used freely, it would indeed make Uchiha Akira unstoppable. "Wait, Itachi, you also have a Mangeki Sharingan, don't you?" Kakuzu suddenly asked, directing the attention back to Itachi. "My Mangeki possesses different abilities than Koda Amatsukami," Itachi replied, giving Kakuzu a measured glance. Naturally, Itachi had no intention of revealing the specifics of his own Mangeki techniques. "Given what we've learned about Uchiha Akira, we need to be prepared for any encounters with him," Pain finally spoke after a long silence, his voice carrying a weight that settled over the group. The Akatsuki members, now fully aware of the threat Uchiha Akira posed, nodded in agreement. From this moment forward, they would have to tread carefully around this rising star from Konoha. Chapter 117, A Message from Uchiha Itachi. After the Akatsuki meeting ended and everyone had discussed what needed to be discussed, the members gradually dispersed. Orochimaru's reasoning for his actions during the previous mission was deemed acceptable, especially with Itachi's testimony supporting his explanation. As a result, Orochimaru did not face any punishment for abandoning Sasori during their mission. However, the incident made it clear that the partnership between Sasori and Orochimaru was no longer viable. Coincidentally, Itachi had recently joined the Akatsuki, and both he and Orochimaru were former members of Konoha. Thus, Pain decided to temporarily pair Orochimaru with Itachi for the next mission. After the assignments were given, everyone left. But as Orochimaru departed, a new thought took root in his mind: I can't stay in the Akatsuki any longer. The reason? Kota Amatsukami. Orochimaru knew the power of Kota Amatsukami well. When Uchiha Akira had revealed the Manjiki Sharingan containing this fearsome genjutsu, it was clear that he intended to alter Orochimaru's will. This was why Orochimaru had fled immediately. However, Akira did not use Kota Amatsukami on Sasori, allowing him to escape with only the loss of his Hiriko puppet. This indicated that while Akira was willing to use the technique on Orochimaru, he was not as willing to use it on Sasori. For the Akatsuki, Uchiha Akira's Kota Amatsukami was a formidable weapon. The mere existence of such a powerful technique meant that the Akatsuki would likely act with more caution in the future. Knowing this, Orochimaru suspected that the organization would eventually decide to expend Akira's use of Kota Amatsukami by sacrificing someone. Given the events, it was clear that Akira was willing to use the technique on Orochimaru, which made him the most likely target for such a plan. Realizing this, Orochimaru began to seriously consider leaving the Akatsuki. This also suggested that Akira considered Orochimaru's value to be quite high. Although Orochimaru appreciated Akira's keen judgment, he couldn't ignore the fact that being highly valued also meant being targeted. Torn between feeling flattered and anxious, Orochimaru didn't know whether to be happy or troubled by the situation. However, perhaps luck was still on his side. Before he could escape, the Akatsuki decided to pair him with Itachi. Orochimaru thought to himself, if I could seize Itachi's body before leaving, that would be perfect. The next day, Orochimaru and Itachi set out on their mission. As they traveled together, they occasionally engaged in small talk. After all, the two had known each other before Orochimaru defected from Konoha and had interacted on a few occasions. For instance, during the Third Shinobi War, the young Itachi had witnessed the horrors of battle and had once asked Orochimaru about the meaning of life during a funeral in Konoha. Orochimaru had expressed his disdain for such ceremonies, and from that moment on, he had taken a special interest in Itachi, who, even as a child, was contemplating the meaning of life. Orochimaru had watched Itachi's growth closely over the years, which had only deepened his obsession with the Sharingan and his desire to possess Itachi's body. This obsession was so intense that it was almost as if he had fallen under the influence of Kota Amatsukami himself. As they walked, Orochimaru subtly engaged Itachi in conversation, discussing the corruption within Konoha's leadership, reminiscing about the Uchiha clan, and reflecting on past events, all in an effort to lower Itachi's guard. When Orochimaru judged the moment to be right, he suddenly launched his attack, using his shadow snake hand technique. Massive, powerful snakes shot out and coiled around Itachi, binding him tightly. Orochimaru was ecstatic, his body trembling with excitement. After so many years of yearning for Itachi's body, had he finally succeeded? However, despite being restrained, Itachi remained calm, showing no signs of panic. Slowly, the Sharingan in Itachi's eyes began to spin. I've been immobilized by the binding jutsu. Orochimaru exclaimed in disbelief as he realized he couldn't move a muscle. The binding jutsu, also known as the paralyzing jutsu, was not considered a particularly advanced technique in Konoha. Most Jonin and even some Chunin could use it. Yet here was one of the legendary Sunin, Orochimaru, rendered helpless by a simple jutsu. Orochimaru was stunned, realizing that Itachi's Sharingan was far more powerful than he had anticipated. In front of these eyes, you pose no threat at all, Itachi declared, his voice steady as he gazed at Orochimaru. Indeed, Orochimaru was an immensely powerful cage-level shinobi. However, Itachi could clearly sense that Orochimaru's mental defenses were exceedingly weak, making him almost entirely vulnerable to genjutsu, Itachi's specialty, and a domain in which he excelled. Thus, despite both being cage-level ninjas, Itachi had managed to subdue Orochimaru with a mere binding jutsu. Orochimaru fled. Even though he was defeated, Orochimaru, with his reputation as the most elusive character in the Naruto world, managed to escape. Defeating him was one thing, killing him was another matter entirely. He fled, wounded, and made no attempt to return to the Akatsuki. Having already planned to leave the organization, Orochimaru now had even more reason to do so. After attacking a fellow Akatsuki member, he could no longer remain in the group. Meanwhile, Uchiha Akira and his team continued their journey toward the border of the land of Earth. Their pace was neither fast nor slow, typical for a group of their caliber. During their journey, Jiraiya took the time to learn more about Naruto's situation, providing him with systematic and targeted training to build a solid foundation. Given the current battlefield conditions, Jiraiya knew that rapidly increasing Naruto's strength would not be easy. After some thought, Jiraiya brought out a contract scroll, had Naruto sign it, and taught him the summoning jutsu. With Naruto's massive chakra reserves, he would likely have no trouble using the summoning jutsu. In critical situations, summoning one of the powerful toads from Mount Maiboku could serve as an excellent means of self-defense. Haha! I did it! Naruto's joyful shout echoed through the night as he successfully performed the summoning jutsu. A massive toad, as large as a small mountain, appeared, easily visible from several kilometers away. Summoning jutsu, hey? I wonder when I'll find a suitable summoning creature for myself, Akira mused as he observed Naruto's success. A powerful summoning contract could indeed be a valuable asset for any ninja. Looking at the Naruto universe, the most powerful summoning contracts were held by the legendary Sun in Mount Maiboku, Rika Cave, and Shikotsu Forest. The specifics of Shikotsu Forest were unknown, as only Tsunade could summon from there. But Rika Cave and Mount Maiboku were known for their ability to teach Sage Mode. Impressive! He managed to summon Gamabunta so quickly. Narashikaku remarked, a hint of nostalgia and amazement in his voice as he gazed at the massive toad in the distance. Gamabunta! It's been a long time since I last saw him, Akimichi Chisa added, his tone filled with reminiscence. As one of the fourth Hokage's most trusted subordinates, Chisa had fought alongside Gamabunta many times, so the sight of the giant toad was a familiar one. Just as Akira and the others were looking at Gamabunta, a chilling cry suddenly pierced the night air. The sound of a crow, pitch black against the night sky, echoed eerily, making the scene feel even more ominous. Akira's eyes narrowed as he noticed a crow descending from the sky, its wings flapping steadily. What caught Akira's attention was the crow's eyes glowing with the distinctive pattern of the three Tomo Sharingan. It was clear that this was not an ordinary crow, rather, it was a reflection of the power of the Sharingan. Just as the Nine-Tails eyes displayed the Sharingan pattern when controlled, or how the summoning creatures of Pain's animal path bore the Rinnegan, this crow was influenced by the Sharingan's power. A crow with the Sharingan? Akira immediately guessed where this crow had come from. As the crow landed before Akira, he instinctively reached out his hand, and the crow perched on it without hesitation. With a sense of anticipation, Akira closed his eyes. When he reopened them, his own three Tomo Sharingan was active. A message, sealed within the crow's Sharingan, was triggered by the contact with Akira's Sharingan, satisfying the conditions for its release. The message then entered Akira's mind. The first part of the message was a warning. The Akatsuki now knew that Akira possessed Kota Amatsukami. The second part informed him that Orochimaru had attempted to attack Itachi but was severely injured and had likely defected from the Akatsuki. This was the information Itachi had sent, just these 2 points. The first part, a warning about the Akatsuki's potential plans, made sense to Akira. But the second part, about Orochimaru's situation, why had Itachi gone out of his way to share this? After a moment of contemplation, a small smile formed on Akira's lips. He understood what Itachi was trying to convey. Chapter 118, Introducing the Essence of Guerrilla Warfare to the Shinobi World. It didn't take Uchiha Akira long to understand what Uchiha Itachi meant. Previously, when facing Orochimaru and Sasori, Akira had revealed his Manjiki Sharingan, genuinely intending to use Kota Amatsukami to bring Orochimaru under his control. The Akatsuki members were aware of this, and Itachi likely thought Akira still wanted to recruit Orochimaru. By sending this message, Itachi was subtly informing Akira that now was the best opportunity to do so. Orochimaru had now betrayed both Konoha and the Akatsuki and was injured, making this a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Orochimaru, hey? It wouldn't be a bad idea. I already have Hashirama's cells within me. If Orochimaru studies them, maybe I could also unlock wood release, Akira mused after processing the information. As he did, the Sharingan pattern in the crow's eyes faded, its chakra depleted, and it flew away. Akira couldn't help but ponder. Madara Uchiha, after acquiring Hashirama's cells, fused the powers of Indra and Asura to awaken the Rinnegan. Although Akira didn't have the same circumstances, the idea of wielding wood release was still appealing. However, considering his own chakra reserves wouldn't match those of Hashirama Senju, he knew it might be unrealistic to expect anything beyond the level of Yamato's abilities. The true strength of wood release lay not in the technique itself but in the near-limitless chakra of Hashirama Senju. Even if Hashirama had used other techniques, his sheer chakra would have allowed him to dominate the ninja world. After all, Tsunade's most powerful technique was merely a passive ability inherited from Hashirama. Returning to the present, Akira decided not to dwell on wood release but acknowledged that Orochimaru could still be valuable, both personally and for the village of Konoha. There was a saying among anime fans in the real world, Uncle Snake holds the core technology, and it wasn't just a casual remark. Akira, what was that crow about? Asked Might Guy, who had noticed the crow's appearance. The Sharingan pattern in the crow's eyes had been visible to everyone, prompting Guy's curiosity. It was just a message from a fellow Uchiha. Nothing important, Akira replied casually, glancing at Guy. Naturally, he couldn't reveal that Itachi was acting as a spy within the Akatsuki. Now that Orochimaru had left the Akatsuki, the question was where he would go next. After some thought, it seemed likely he would head to the Land of Sound. Akira recalled that in one of his simulation experiences, he had managed to survive the Uchiha massacre by hiding with Orochimaru, who was already setting up base in the Land of Sound back then. So, by now, the village there should be fairly established. Looking at the map, Akira saw that the Land of Wind lay to the west of the Land of Fire, the Land of Earth to the northwest, and the Land of Lightning to the northeast. The Land of Sound, however, was directly to the north of the Land of Fire. Following their current route through the lands of Wind, Earth, and Lightning, they would eventually pass near the Land of Sound's borders. With that in mind, Akira decided to keep an eye out for Orochimaru as they traveled. If he could locate and subdue Orochimaru with Kota Amatsukami, he would do so. If not, keeping such a powerful technique in reserve was still a good option. Kakashi and the others noticed that Akira didn't elaborate on the crow, understanding that it was something Akira didn't want to discuss. They didn't press the matter. The group took turns standing watch through the night. Naruto and Jiraiya returned in high spirits in the middle of the night. By morning, Naruto had only slept for about 4 hours, yet he was still full of energy, a testament to his Uzumaki lineage. Fortunately, Naruto hadn't developed the same sleep habits he had in the original story, where he had a tendency to sleepwalk and practice the raise nan in his sleep, which had once driven Yamato to tears. These were just minor incidents along their journey. A few days later, Akira and his group reached the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Earth. However, upon arrival, they found themselves with grim expressions. The reason? The Land of Earth had already constructed defensive fortifications along the border, with at least 2,000 to 3,000 Iwanin gathered there. It seems the old man Oniki is dead set on waging war against the Land of Fire, Jiraiya muttered, his expression darkening as he surveyed the fortifications. The Iwanin are known for their earth release techniques, so constructing these defenses wouldn't have been too difficult, Narashikaku commented, nodding as the others acknowledged the truth of his statement. Indeed, building such fortifications wouldn't be much of a challenge for the Iwanin. But the fact that there were already 2,000 to 3,000 ninjas here, and the fortifications still seemed empty, suggested that these ninjas were merely the vanguard. More Iwanin reinforcements were likely on the way. It looks like we'll need to thoroughly defeat these Iwanin if we want to prevent a scenario we'd all rather avoid, Akira said, his voice tinged with seriousness as he assessed the situation. Suddenly, everything made sense to Akira. In his previous simulations, he had seen how the battle with the Iwanin had dragged on for over 10 days without a decisive outcome. Even a month later, when Oniki himself had entered the fray and used dust release to kill Akira, the tides had still not turned. Shikaku, do you have a plan for dealing with this? Akim Ichichisa asked, turning to Shikaku for guidance. Akira and the others also looked at Shikaku expectantly. They knew they couldn't engage the Iwanin head-on due to their numerical disadvantage. As Konoha's most brilliant strategist, Shikaku was now tasked with devising a suitable battle plan. Shikaku didn't answer immediately. The gravity of the situation required careful consideration, and he needed time to think. After a few minutes of silence, Hyuga Hayashi activated his Byakugan to survey the Iwanin's defenses from afar. There are about 2,300 Iwanin in that camp, Hayashi reported. I can't accurately assess their strength, though. A force of 2,300? It seems this is one of Iwa's elite units. Our best approach would be to lure them out and then eliminate smaller groups in succession, Shikaku suggested, outlining the core strategy. Everyone from Konoha nodded in agreement. Given the disparity in numbers, dividing and conquering the enemy was the only viable option. Actually, have you considered another strategy? Akira suddenly interjected just as the group was about to discuss how to draw out the awaken in smaller numbers. Another strategy? What do you have in mind? Although Akira was only 7 years old, he had already earned everyone's respect. While Shikaku's wisdom was universally acknowledged, everyone was curious to hear Akira's alternative suggestion. Lure the enemy in, retreat when they advance, harass when they rest, strike when they tire, and pursue when they retreat, Akira proposed, outlining his strategy. These 16 words encapsulated the essence of guerrilla warfare, a strategy historically proven to be highly effective, especially when fighting a larger force with fewer numbers. Hey! The Konoha ninjas were taken aback by Akira's proposal, exchanging glances in surprise. Upon reflection, they realized it was indeed a highly rational tactic. If they executed it correctly, they could seize the initiative despite their smaller numbers. The enemy's ability to eat, sleep, and rest would be in Konoha's hands, not Iwa's. What do you think, Shikaku? Although Akira's idea seemed feasible, the group still looked to Shikaku for his analysis. In theory, Akira's strategy is excellent. But it relies on 2 key conditions, Shikaku said after a moment of contemplation. What conditions? The Konoha ninjas asked. First, the person implementing this strategy must be able to evade capture by the awaken. Second, they need sufficient firepower to create enough chaos to prevent the awaken from resting, Shikaku explained. True, those are crucial factors, Kakashi and the others agreed, nodding in acknowledgement. Looks like, since I suggested this strategy, I'm the best candidate to execute it, Akira said, volunteering to implement the guerrilla tactics. After all, guerrilla warfare was a specialty of his previous life's culture. Being a Uchiha on the outside but embodying the spirit of the Dragon Nation on the inside, Akira was the most suited for this role. Moreover, he met both of Shikaku's prerequisites perfectly. Chapter 119, A Solo Raid on the awaken Camp, a reflection of Obito? Although the concept of guerrilla warfare had been proposed, Akira Uchiha understood that the wars of his previous life were different from those in the shinobi world. Therefore, he acknowledged the necessity of the 2 conditions that Nara Shikaku had outlined. First, you have to avoid getting caught to engage in guerrilla warfare. If you're caught by the awaken after just a few skirmishes, then how can you continue with guerrilla tactics? Second, you need to cause enough of a commotion to effectively harass the enemy. If you can't create enough chaos, then how can you even start? These are the essential conditions for guerrilla warfare in the shinobi world, which make it more challenging than in reality, where individual combat strength is crucial. However, it's also easier in some ways. If you're strong enough, one person might be enough. In reality, if one person tried to harass an entire army with just a gun, they wouldn't cause much of a stir. But in the shinobi world, it's different. Because individual strength matters so much, even one person can create a massive disturbance. After some thought, Akira Uchiha concluded that he was the best person for the job. You want to go? Alone? Everyone turned to look at him when Akira volunteered. No matter how you looked at it, facing thousands of ninjas alone was too dangerous. Take the third Raikage, for example. He was a renowned shinobi, one of the best among the Kage, but in the end, he was overwhelmed and killed after being surrounded by tens of thousands of ninjas. Don't worry. First, I'm not going to directly fight over 2,000 awaken, I'm just going to harass them, Akira explained. Second, as for the first point Shikaku mentioned, about not getting caught, pardon my arrogance, but while my overall strength might rank somewhere in the top 10 or even top 20 in the shinobi world, in terms of Shunshin no Jutsu, body flicker technique, I'm at least in the top few. As for the second point, about creating a commotion, is there anything better suited for that than lightning release and fire release? The Uchiha are naturally skilled in controlling fire, and I also have dual affinities for lightning and fire. Finally, since I'm the one who proposed this strategy, I naturally know best how to implement it, Akira concluded, giving his reasons for taking on the mission himself. His reasons made sense, and everyone present silently nodded in agreement. Indeed, lightning and fire release are perfect for creating a commotion. Given that Akira trained under Shisui, his Shunshin no Jutsu is indeed unparalleled in the shinobi world. He's even better suited for this mission than Jiraiya. Alright, kid, just be careful. It's a shame that no one can use Minato's Flying Thunder God technique, otherwise. Jiraiya was the first to nod in agreement, but then he sighed with regret. The Inoshika CH trio nodded in agreement as well. Indeed, if they had the Flying Thunder God technique, it would be the perfect tool for guerrilla warfare. It would allow them to attack and retreat at will, making it impossible for the enemy to catch them. Akira smiled slightly but didn't say anything more. He looked up at the sky. It was around 9 o'clock in the evening, still early, no need to rush. Akira began conserving his energy, waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, Jiraiya and the others also made their preparations. Even if they couldn't directly help, they could follow Shikaku's plan to ambush and eliminate small groups of Iwanin if Akira managed to lure them out. Around the middle of the night, at approximately 1 o'clock, Akira made his move. With the power of a cage-level shinobi and being alone, infiltrating Iwa's defenses was relatively simple. Thanks to countless simulations, equating to hundreds of years of experience, Akira had developed a keen understanding of various situations. He could easily detect the barriers covering the defense structures. This is the benefit of being born in Konoha. As the leading nation among the 5 great shinobi countries, Konoha isn't just powerful and full of talent, it also excels in jutsu research, far surpassing the other villages. For example, Tsunagakure focuses on wind release and puppetry. Kirigakure emphasizes water release and the 7 ninja swordsmen. Iwagakure specializes in earth release. And Kumigakure is known for its lightning release. But the land of fire? We excel in wind, fire, water, lightning, earth, sealing techniques, top-tier summoning contracts, plus the Kekkei Genkai and secret techniques of various clans. We're proficient in everything, even mastering them all. This is why Konoha can utterly dominate the other villages. You know it, I know it, and I can even find the best way to counter you. That's Konoha's strength. Akira thought to himself as he quietly infiltrated the Iwa camp without triggering the barriers. Enemy attack. However, just as Akira infiltrated, someone shouted. Immediately, 7 or 8 Iwanin, all Jainin, moved toward Akira's location. Discovered so quickly. Akira mused. No wonder the simulator indicated that the battle dragged on for over 10 days. This truly is an elite Iwa unit. It seems there's someone with exceptional sensory abilities among them. Truth be told, Akira was slightly surprised that he had been discovered before he even had a chance to create any chaos. But since guerrilla warfare was about harassment, he didn't mind being noticed. Only 7 or 8 Jainin coming at me. Akira thought, slightly disappointed. I could use a bit more attention, the bigger the commotion, the better. With that in mind, Akira didn't waste any more time. The moment he was spotted, he activated his Shunshin no Jutsu, the signature technique of his mentor, Shisui. The 3 Tomo in Akira's Sharingan spun, and suddenly, a dozen shadowy clones appeared. Instead of facing the approaching Iwanin, the clones exploded in all directions, scattering rapidly. One Iwanin slashed at one of the clones with his sword, but it passed right through Akira's body. He's a mirage! The Jainin shouted. On the other side, another kunao flew toward one of Akira's clones, only to pass through as well. This one's also an illusion. Earth release, swamp of the underworld. Another Iwanin attempted to trap Akira with an earth release technique, but Akira simply ran over the swamp without leaving a single footprint. This one's also an illusion. That's Shisui's Shunshin no Jutsu. No, wait, it's Uchiha Akira. The Jainin who had used the swamp of the underworld recognized Shisui's technique, then noticed Akira's Sharingan and shouted in realization. However, just as he finished speaking, one of Akira's clones turned its head, the 3 Tomo spinning in its Sharingan. The Jainin felt a chill down his spine as if he were being hunted by a predator. Akira vanished in a flash and reappeared in front of the Jainin. Earth release, earth-style wall. Panicked, the Iwanin quickly formed hand seals and slammed his hands on the ground, raising a thick stone wall in front of him. But with a burst of lightning, the stone wall was shattered by Akira's Chidori. The lightning-charged hand pierced right through the Iwanin's body. Not only did Akira's cage-level chakra utterly overwhelm the Jainin, but the Chidori, an S-rank lightning release technique, was also naturally superior to earth release. The stone wall crumbled like paper before Akira. You knew too much, Akira said coldly as he finished off the Jainin. Kill him. Seeing one of their own taken down in an instant, the remaining Iwanin rushed toward Akira, shouting. But just as 2 or 3 of them reached him and launched their attacks, their strikes passed through Akira's body once again. So this is the famed Shunshin no Jutsu. The Iwanin finally experienced firsthand the power of the technique. With a dozen shadowy clones, it was impossible to tell which were real and which were illusions. When they attacked, their target was an illusion; when they were attacked, they became solid. How could anyone fight against that? Everyone, his attacks are solid when he strikes. That's your chance to hit him. One of the Iwanin shouted, trying to guide his comrades. Why does this suddenly make me feel like Obito? Akira thought, amused by the situation. Whenever Obito attacked with his Kamui, others would also try to use this method to counter him. Shaking off the odd feeling, Akira reminded himself that, unlike Obito, he wasn't here to kill anyone just to cause chaos. After taking down the first Jonin, Akira had no intention of engaging the Iwanin any further. Every attack passed through Akira as he let his shadow clones scatter. Once in position, Akira swapped places with one of his clones and quickly formed hand seals. Fire release, great fireball technique. Fire release, great fireball technique. Fire release, great fireball technique. When it came to causing a commotion, fire release was perfect. It was as if Akira only knew this one jutsu, as he unleashed one great fireball after another from various locations. In the dead of night, the explosive display of fire release jolted the entire IWA defense force into action. Note, you'll receive your 5 chapters shortly, around the time the rankings reset. Chapter 120, You've all been surrounded by Uchiha Akira. Akira has already infiltrated Iwa's base. Not good, he's been discovered. It seems there are some highly sensitive sensory ninjas on the IWA side. Akira used Shunshin no Jutsu. There are over a dozen shadowy clones, impossible to tell which are real. He's not engaging them directly, it seems he's focusing on creating chaos instead. Wait! Akira suddenly struck and killed one of the ninjas. The 2 nearby attacked him, but his body turned back into a shadowy clone. He's using fire release. Over 10 fire release jutsus, and now the entire IWA base is up in flames. Higahayashi's Byakugan was pushed to its limits, veins bulging around his eyes, giving a terrifying appearance as he provided a live report to Jiraiya and the others from afar. In truth, even though they were a distance away, the sight of flames lighting up the night sky told Jiraiya and the others that Akira had already caused considerable chaos within the IWA base. Indeed, using fire release to create confusion was the perfect choice. From the intensity of the fire alone, Jiraiya and the others could tell that the entire IWA base had been thrown into turmoil. Akira is incredible! Naruto exclaimed as he watched the distant flames and listened to Higahayashi's live commentary. His spirits were lifted, though he also felt a pang of envy. They were both 7 years old, but while he could only watch from afar, Akira was alone, charging into the IWA base. Naruto couldn't help but admire and envy Akira's courage. While those outside the base were dealing with their own thoughts, inside, Akira continued to run through the base, using over a dozen shadowy clones. After unleashing over 10 great fireball techniques, he looked around the base and nodded quietly to himself. The strategy of harassing the enemy while they're stationary had clearly succeeded. With that, there was no need for him to stay any longer. The Iwanin were all on high alert, and more were closing in on him. Even with his shadowy clones, staying any longer would mean getting surrounded. With that in mind, Akira formed hand seals, and his chakra surged. Multiple shadow clone jutsu. Bang, 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 bang. In an instant, Akira summoned hundreds of shadow clones. These clones immediately scattered in all directions. Don't let any of them escape! Shouted one of the Iwanin, as all the IWA forces launched their attacks. Though Akira's shadow clones were numerous, the surrounding Iwanin were even more so. A series of dense explosions echoed as Akira's shadow clones were destroyed one by one. Amid the chaos, the real Akira took advantage of the situation to make a run for the outskirts of the IWA base. By the time he reached the edge, only 20 or 30 of his hundreds of shadow clones remained, and they gradually escaped the base. Don't let him escape! 5 squads, pursue him! Everyone else, hold the base! The Iwanin, filled with anger, couldn't allow Akira to get away. 5 squads, each consisting of 4 members, quickly took off after Akira. There was no need for words. After using over a dozen fire release jutsus and creating hundreds of shadow clones, the Iwanin knew that Akira must have used up a considerable amount of chakra. And with the chance to capture someone hailed as the greatest genius in the shinobi world, they weren't about to let him go. Their coming 20 IWAnin, most of them Jainin level. Jiraiya and the others, who had been waiting in ambush, perked up at Hayashi's report. Akira's guerrilla tactics had worked well, and now Shikaku's strategy was about to come into play. Akira knew exactly where Jiraiya and the others were. This was the time to put on an act. Like in an online game, when your teammates are hiding in the bushes and you need to lure a few enemy heroes over, you've got to sell it. Akira feigned exhaustion, slowing his pace, making it seem like his chakra was nearly depleted. He led the IWAnin into a ravine, where they finally caught up to him. The 20 IWAnin surrounded Akira, cutting off all his escape routes. Uchiha Akira, you can't run anymore. One of the IWAnin smirked, his face filled with triumph. The greatest genius of the shinobi world? In 10 years, he might reach the strength of Uchiha Madara? Sorry, but a genius who doesn't grow up isn't a genius at all. The shinobi world is littered with brilliant talents who died young. Akira would just be another one of them. Only the rare few who survive and grow strong enough are remembered by the world. Sorry, but you're the ones who've been surrounded. Despite being encircled, Akira showed no signs of panic. Instead, a smile crept across his face as he addressed the 20 IWAnin. At first, the IWAnin found this declaration laughable. What nonsense is this? One person surrounded by 20, claiming he's the one who's done the surrounding? But then, an uneasy feeling crept over them, something didn't seem right. Rustle, rustle, rustle. As if to confirm Akira's words, figures suddenly appeared in the ravine. Akim Ichichise, Yamanaka Inoichi, Nara Shikaku, Might Guy, Kakashi Hatake, Higa Hayashi, Naruto Uzumaki, and Jiraiya. 8 people emerged, forming a larger circle that now trapped the IWAnin within. First, the IWAnin had surrounded Akira, but now the Konoha shinobi had surrounded the IWAnin, creating a situation like a nesting doll. Humph, so what? We still outnumber you by a large margin. Despite their initial shock, one of the IWAnin calmed down upon realizing they still had the advantage in numbers. No, something's not right. While the first IWAnin might not have recognized the danger, these were elite IWAnin, and not all of them were so unobservant. One of them, his face filled with fear, started to speak. That's the head of the Hyga clan from Konoha. Those 3, are they the Inoshika CH combo? And that one with the Sharingan in his left eye? Silver hair? Is that the son of the legendary White Fang? The copy ninja Kakashi Hatake? Hey, that white-haired guy, isn't he one of the legendary Sunin, Jiraiya? As they recognized the identities of the Konoha shinobi, the IWAnin's faces turned to despair. Though Konoha's forces were few, each one was a shinobi of immense renown, feared throughout the shinobi world. Especially Jiraiya, one of the Sunin, his presence on the battlefield could lead an entire army. What, so we're just going to be ignored? Both Might Guy and Naruto, who hadn't been recognized, felt a bit left out. So what? Are we just extras here? Sorry, but you've all been surrounded. Akira repeated with a smile, addressing the 20 elite IWAnin. Attack! In a clash, the brave win. At this point, nothing else mattered, it was all about who had the stronger skills. The 20 IWAnin fought fiercely but were quickly and decisively defeated. Although their numbers were similar to the 24 Jainin from Tsunagakuer that Akira had faced before, there were key differences. First, while all the Tsunagakuer shinobi were Jainin, the IWAnin included several Chunin, creating a disparity in strength. Second, the traps set for the Tsunagakuer shinobi were hasty, while this time, they had ample time to prepare. Lastly, during the Tsunagakuer battle, Naruto had been more of a hindrance than a help. This time, not only was Naruto able to contribute, but they also had the powerful Jiraiya on their side. Comparing the two battles, this time, they had 3 significant advantages. Last time, only 6 of the Tsunagakuer shinobi were killed, with the rest escaping. This time, not a single one of the 20 IWAnin escaped, they were all taken down. Meanwhile, back at the IWA base, Kitsuki, who was in charge of the base and also Onaki's son, was waiting for the squads to return. He hadn't expected Akira Uchiha to be so bold as to attack the IWA base alone. With 5 teams sent to pursue him, Kitsuki was confident that there would be no problem. But as the minutes passed with no sign of the returning squads, Kitsuka's heart grew heavy. At first, he had been pleased, thinking that Akira would be captured. Then, as time went on and Akira hadn't been caught, he began to think that maybe Akira had some tricks up his sleeve, lasting longer than expected. Finally, it dawned on him that the 5 squads might not be coming back at all. As dawn broke the next day, a dozing Kitsuka was jolted awake. He immediately inquired about the status of the pursuit teams. As expected, the answer came back that they hadn't returned. Kitsuka's heart sank. An entire night had passed without any sign of them. It seemed clear now they weren't coming back. Damn it, I've been tricked. Uchiha Akira was just bait. By this point, Kitsuka finally understood that he had been outplayed, his face darkening with realization.
Thanks for listening.